the shattered isles, fractured by aether and the depredations of savage behemoths feeding on its power. Against their endless hunger stand the Slayers, our last hope. There are more behemoths turning up on the frontier every day. And like it or not, you lot are all that stands between them and the good people of Ramsgate.
Yes.
Today you prove you're not just recruits. You're Slayers.
We here, they can hear us, by the way.
All right. Wait, I'm still. Holy shit! It's so spicy. What the?
Jesus Christ, mate.
I know, right? This patch is so spicy.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah,
It's so
but in a
hot.
bad way. No. Holy shit!
Okay,
All right.
so
Should we start anyways?
yeah.
Alright, give me 1 second. I'm gonna get something to drink.
I guess
It's gonna
we're
take like 2 minutes and then I'll be there.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Okay,
We're good.
so let's we can go over what we're gonna go over if we want to talk about that.
Sure. What did you write down?
I wrote down patch. Very very unprofessional. No. We're basically gonna go over the patch as usual, referring to anything we are unhappy with or find to be repulsing, or I don't know, anything that annoys us and anything that we would like to see changed. Like, we're just gonna do what we normally do, to be honest. There is nothing wrong with that.
All right.
And then we're gonna go into depth with all the other stuff.
Did they mention the daily login rewards in the patch notes? I didn't see.
I don't think they did.
Did they? They didn't, right?
No, they didn't.
Because like that's also a big point. Because I don't know. You gotta search for them, otherwise you
Yeah,
won't find them.
I keep forgetting.
And you
that they
forget them.
exist.
Yeah. They're way too like unpresent, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. I'm hoping we should be happy to get the Revi in here and the Eoden later. Hopefully.
We'll have quite the diversity.
We have a lot of diversity. We will, yeah, exactly.
Also, did they mention the like Molten changes?
The Molten?
I didn't saw. Yeah.
I don't think that is.
Okay. Interesting. Weird.
Yeah, exactly. So, should we like start talking about the overall idea we have of the patch?
I am good to go.
So, what were your thoughts about the patch? Like before we will just, before we really get into it. So far, I guess.
Like, to be honest, I expected a little more.
I don't know. I didn't really expect that much.
Yeah, I mean, you can never expect something from them, but like, you know, I don't know. Just like we didn't get that much. Just a new hunt pass, a new weapon, of course. Yeah.
And a new behemoth and a new system.
Yeah, but like I don't know, the bounty system like feels even faster than the weeklies.
It's like I think
Exactly.
the way I describe it is there's a lot of new stuff,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel new and it doesn't
Yeah.
feel better.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. I like in
Sure.
2 days I already went to hunt pass level. That would have been 20.
I mean, in 2 days I was finished.
It was insane.
I feel
So
like the current content has been, well, for lack of a better term, uninspired. Well, yeah,
Unexpiring.
there just hasn't been much. Yeah, there
yeah,
just
that's
Yeah.
hasn't
true.
been much.
They're relying too much on trials right now.
Interesting. I actually feel completely differently. So I haven't been able to play a whole lot.
Doesn't
But
play.
well, no. But like when I'm saying I haven't been able to play a whole lot, I mean I've been doing like 30 matches.
Hi, Ravi.
Hey,
Hey,
I've been doing
Ravi.
like 30 matches a week, right? And so what I've noticed is that because I'm not playing as extremely much as I previously was, I have way more time to take in the content, and it just feels smooth basically compared to the last patches, right, where there was like constant bugs and issues. And right now I can just start it and I can trust that the game works, at least in a workable state, right? Sure, there's still bugs, but they're not as prevalent as they were previously. So I think it's actually a major improvement in that sense.
Oh yeah, optimization wise, I'd say that was a good step up. I'll take that.
Sure, but like that's from a point where you don't play as much as we play, you know?
Yeah. No, I
So,
mean,
like-
from a player like as you if you play like I don't know 40 matches a day, right? You're gonna
Yeah.
easily find yourself out of content. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know. As I said, I think they're just relying too much on trials right now as content.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they are. My reasoning being the way the reward scheme is set up for trials, it very much encourages you to only do it once and then just get the heck out, right? So
Mm.
I don't think that trials right now is set up to be meant as the go-to end game experience. And I think the fact that they immediately started on another game mode is kind of confirming that for me in my mind. That
Yeah,
gives me the
I
feeling that
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
they don't intend
Well,
to play it.
but escalation though, we always
I don't
ask to know, not being able to go back into, not having to go back to Ramsgate to fight any behemoth. To be honest, I'm
it sounds like what expeditions would have been in when
Yeah.
they said expeditions.
exactly.
Yeah, but wait, what exactly is like the new game mode they're
Escalation.
implementing? Yeah.
I actually don't have it.
Do we know more about it? Or?
We know that it's. Let me find it here.
They're like 3 to 5 like
Yeah.
hunts back to back that get progressively harder.
It says here, the description is literally 1 behemoth EC, 5 behemoths escalation. This new mode challenges slayers to survive a series of brutal behemoth encounters, each one more challenging than the last. At the end of each successful fight, you'll be able to choose a special buff to help you. So.
Alright, but like harder because of what? Because if they're having like more
Yeah,
health or
I would guess
Yeah, I
they're
guess,
probably
like,
gonna
the
add more
power and
multipliers and
modifiers.
yeah.
Yeah.
okay. And like how many stages are in there? 3 to
They said
5?
5.
5. Alright. So okay. And what do you get when you beat it? Do you
I
get
would
something
guess
from it?
you would get like all the parts and stuff and all gather things you get. I don't
I
see
mean,
anything
that's-
else that you would.
I mean, you're saying that as if it's normal, but looking at trials.
Yeah, they could easily just make it so we have to get new currency, but I feel like they would add too much like to keep track of.
I mean, I was hoping that the how it would work in my mind was that the 5th and final fight you do is the new behemoth, and that's the only way you can fight it is after like going through this
Oh.
chain of weaker behemoths.
Oh.
That'd be fun, but I don't think they would do that. Like looking it back.
People would feel like that's too grindy.
Yeah, exactly.
And, yeah.
Don't think
So
locking
I'm
it
not-
away would be
I'm not
a
sure
wise
how I
idea.
feel about it. I think the idea is cool, but there's a lot of questions left to be
Oh yeah, they
answered.
are.
one of the things that they're like, yeah, you get a unique buff. That to me sounds like, oh no, please don't add a timer to this because it will be RNG all over again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're not gonna
Oh,
implement it
yes.
in the leaderboards, probably, right?
I hope
mean,
they're not.
there won't be leaderboards for that.
I
I
think it
hope
would be
so.
the
I
same
mean, I
as
hope there won't be.
expeditions.
But
Oh.
yeah, that's just one of these things that comes to mind. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's future content. Let's talk about current content.
Yeah, let's talk about
Yeah,
current
sure.
content. Let's start on the patch. Everyone
Alright.
everyone ready for that?
Yeah.
Good.
If I can really fast, I'm on a phone headset microphone, so I just want to make sure I'm not like blowing any ears out.
No,
No,
you're
it's
fine.
Oh, you're not blowing ears. You're fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds alright. Alright, what are we gonna start with? Like
But-
strikers, of course.
Yeah, I
because-
think that's like the one thing that we're all, you know, really itching to talk about, or our opinion with the new strikers.
Yeah. I mean, I expect them to be overtuned, but like that's almost for every weapon when it's like new to the game, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So like it needs some time
Yeah.
to like get reworked, but that's normal, I would say. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a little overtuned right now.
So what are your guys' thoughts on how they're played? They're apparently the Dauntless website lists them as a tier 5 difficulty weapon.
I do not think that they are hard at all.
Yeah,
They
no,
are not.
Yeah.
Once you get like the grasp of it, it's like it's really easy. I don't know.
Aether Strikers are
Easy.
harder than Hammer. Well, maybe I can kind of.
I think they probably intended it as, you know, being hard
I
because you
actually
have to
think they're
keep.
easier than Hammer because you can dodge way
Oh,
more
yeah.
like with the
They're not
the-
nearly as technical as Hammer.
yeah, that's for
Where
sure.
would you guys say is the big difference between Hammer and the strikers
I
right
think
now in
that
terms of the complexity?
Oh, you mean like talking about complexity?
Yeah, I'm
Alright.
basically asking like, hey, so if you look at a hammer and you look at a striker, what would you say is making a hammer more complex than a striker right now?
Well, I wouldn't say more complex,
I
but
thi-
I would say like more harder to dodge with
I
the hammer
I think they
because you get locked into your attacks, and with the strikers you could just press Q once, to get out
I
of
think
there.
they might have meant it so that the strikers are harder for newer players because you have to keep up buffs to maintain
Oh yeah,
a
sure.
huge amount of damage. But even without the buffs, you're still dealing in, like, a good amount of damage. So there's no really a need to keep up anything besides Tempest.
Yeah.
Overall, I think the strikers are. I don't think that they're like as a comparison. I don't think they're harder than Hammer. I think that both weapons can be respectfully difficult. I think that the strikers are much harder to get all of their damage out. The hammer has one combo,
Yeah, that's
for
true.
their top tier damage is just Aether Slam repeatedly, so that like anyone can generalize the simplicity of a weapon. I think it's really easy to fall off when you're dodging everything with the strikers. If you double mantra or using Tempest Form twice, there's very easy things like that that are unoptimal, and in that regard, you could be seen as like, you're not as good as at the weapon. But I do agree that like evasion and the need for not having stamina is just not there, and I think that's what most are talking about with the hammer. You just need it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you would basically argue that they're easier to get into, but then sort of harder to sort of get that last stage out.
I
No, I
think
wouldn't say.
anyone in this room, top tier players are gonna just kind of brush off everything is kind of easy, personally.
Uh-huh.
But like,
Yeah.
The Aether Strikers, I think they're just like they're on relatively same levels as far as like damage and balancing. I agree with Banana. Like everything's gonna
Yeah.
be overtuned on release. It's just a way to get everybody to like them and try them out and get more data on them in general. Like, personally, I feel like Dauntless 1.0 or alpha state, it doesn't really matter. We've always been on like the public test realm, right? Like we are the
Yeah.
testers, and I don't think that much is going to change into. I think we're always going to be testing the game as like top tier players.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
So
for sure.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
well put.
I think that's an interesting way to look at the game, though. Because basically the way that I see it is that when sort of the end game, right, sort of moves on from content. So let's say trials, they would after a while maybe become worth less. So you sort of stop doing them, kind of like how we stopped trying to obtain cells while we frantically tried to do so at the start of the game. Do you feel that sort of the way they're handling it is sort of feeding us like the new content, and then we sort of consume it, and then they fix the issues, and then when sort of the big crowd rolls in, most of the issues are hammered out?
that is like the top 5% of players in every game. That's
Yeah,
to me
that's
at least.
true.
I feel like when you invest so much time into a game, you start seeing all the flaws. It becomes a different experience,
Oh
even
yeah,
to the
for
point
sure.
of like having disdain for the game and not seeing those changes as fast as you'd like to see them. That's all super common in high levels of play. Like I said, top 5% of play. So you get those players that are uh, passionately posting on the forums or like on Reddit or something. Like it's all so common. So
Yes,
uh,
you definitely have those.
I want to reiterate though really fast, like I don't mean that like we're testing the game all the time in like a really bad way or like in a negative way. I think it's actually really smart for the development of the game. I mean, you kind of sacrifice enjoyment as players like us,
Yeah.
Yeah,
where
but I
you
think
do
that's what you
start seeing
sign
the
up for.
flaws.
We want to
Yeah,
be first. That's, I think, being first and being best, and sort of getting to see it all is a lot more important to the type of player that is disinvested into the game. So I think sort of they're trading that in for the exclusive access to the thing that the developers think is done, but actually isn't.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I was thinking today. I was thinking about the like when they implement. I mean, after the update, when the new weapon came, the strikers. I was thinking like maybe they could like lock them for trials at least for leaderboard times, for like a week, so everybody gets I don't know, gets a little bit better knowledge of them, and then next week we can use them, because
Right,
there are some unfair advantages, I have to say, for some. Not gonna mention anyone.
right.
But you know what? No, but
I
there
would love
there
to
are
hear
many.
more about that, honestly,
Huh?
because there's like massive, at least in our like the small community of like people who run trials, there's like massive miscommunications between the like
Oh
how
yeah.
what we have access to as partners and creators and what we're asked to
Overall,
do.
there's
Like like
massive.
the stigma is that we test trials right before they come out,
Oh no
and
no,
we
I know that's not the case. No worries. But like I don't know, people just like I don't know.
Actually, I'm interested in that. Like, what actually is the case for that, Revi? What do you actually get
without
to
treading
test?
on any NDA. I mean, first of all, I'm under NDA. Like I can't there are things that I
I
just can't
mean,
talk about.
yeah, I know,
Without
but like
stepping
in
without
a
stepping
general
on any toes.
sense,
Yeah, I mean, I
in
could send you a screenshot when I get home, easily of the Skarn trial just not being accessible. I personally, on the second wave, I can send you a screenshot of me apologizing for not testing at all and saying when when the trials opened up, I had been tasked with creating sponsored content, so I was just not able to test.
Yeah.
Just and the people that do test, uh, mm, I don't want to speak for anyone, but for the most, like what I do know is that the trial testing period was several behemoths all at one time at
So you
You
at
could
got
our
like 3
choose,
leisure.
days
or
to do it.
so
I
you
would
could
say
choose which to test, or
I would say we would have. Imagine having a week's time. This is just this is with me not having testing it, and I don't. I would say having a week's time to test a pool of behemoths, right?
yeah,
Like that's like the visualization. And so honestly, if it just based on what I see and hear, it seems like people have this to me, I always joke about it because it's always just like, oh man, the partners have 48 hours a day to test trials, and they just go in right before it's about to launch and get to practice all the time. But I mean, it's a trial period. It's not like those servers are even live before the live server is going to have them. So I mean, at the very least, it's like cold in our mind for a week, and we're playing it in a state that doesn't like I would say almost like the first wave of trials up to Reza didn't even have some of the same things that we get in on the live server, and so I think like if I'm really like I'm gonna be really honest with you boys, I think it's utter bullshit that partners get thrown under the bus like that. Like I just don't. I get the idea of having an unfair advantage, but I can show you like a
yeah. No,
screenshot of just trials being disabled.
but do they
Um,
even take like your advice when you test it? Like, is
Yeah,
there
yeah,
like,
they do. Okay, so I can give you an example there. Because I'm also in testing, so hey, I know this
yeah,
stuff too. And
uh,
one of the things, for instance, they did at the start with trials, is they basically asked us, "Hey guys, which ones are okay?" Right?
what?
And we just had to tell them like, "Yeah, so this is completely unplayable. This is way too hard. This one makes no sense. This one's fun. We like this one." And then
All
they
right.
would just cut entire combinations. So and there's like daily updates. So there's like it's really hard to get a good grasp of the fight because the fight is ever changing and it's actually really hard to even complete one of the fights sub
Yeah, sure.
free on the test server because to be frank, you also don't have a team. You're going to be soloing all of them. Um,
Yeah,
so a lot of these things are done without sort of the proper setup that you would have in the live servers. So you're not competing as much. It's just really going in there, sort of checking it out, going, yeah, that's kind of weird, and then you leave again.
yeah, sure. I mean, I wasn't like talking about trials, like the specific trials per week thing. I was just like talking about new weapons,
Right, right,
Thinking
right.
about new weapons, not like each trial. I
Hmm.
don't give a shit about that. But like, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, new weapons is mostly, I
can
think.
you? I mean, I'm interested in Banana's question. I just don't understand it.
it's all right. It's all right. You don't have
Yeah, I mean,
to.
if you have a like, if you, yeah, if you can think of another way to iterate your question, I would be happy to answer it. I think ultimately the test realm is a great tool. I don't think that we really like we quote unquote fix the game by being there. I think that it's things that allow us to test things like, does group scaling work correctly? Does does the behemoth have those baby behemoth moments, right? Like those things
Yeah,
ended up still happening even though we were on the trial server. Things like getting stuck on the arena, like there was a point where they where we were asked to just like see if what could get like what would cause the behemoth to get stuck. It's things like that. It's not like test out the trial and see what time you can get the
oh yeah,
fastest.
no,
Like it's
no, for sure, for
at
sure.
the maybe at the very beginning it was like that. I would say the closest thing to a trial experience was Nezaga, the very first trial, right?
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that clears it up for you guys. Like we're not necessarily asked to just like get as good as possible at the trial. It's more of like an actual testing experience, like if you were paid QA, where you
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
and paid QA is not luxurious. So
No.
I think it was a
No, it
good.
really
I think it was good that you cleared up that because not only have I haven't been playing a lot, but still, even though and I go on Reddit and I go on Twitter, there are people bitching around like because of not to name any people, but someone being high on the leaderboards and then people using the reason that he or she has access to early content and then training up. I think it was a good idea that you clarified that this is
I
not the
think the
think we should-
chance.
only unfair advantage that partners have, or anyone on the Intest realm had, is the fact that we got to play the weapon. Like we got to play
Yeah.
strikers
Yeah,
beforehand,
that's what I
and
was
they just
referring
turned
to,
out.
not the trials. You know, I was referring to
Yeah,
new weapons. You know,
yeah.
Yeah, I think
I
that's,
that's
I
mean,
think
the
the
problem.
weapons makes a difference. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I absolutely, and I totally agree.
Yeah,
I think that
that's what I
affects the
meant.
leaderboards for a
That's
less
what I
amount of time.
meant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So Skarn is kind of a wash, right? Like that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
just people have an unfair advantage on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
why I said
Totally
like
agree.
when they release a new weapon, maybe like give it like lock it for 1 week for trials, you know, so everybody can get like I don't know, get a grasp of the weapon,
Yeah.
and then like go in next week or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Especially since it was clear that the new weapon was the meta. Like that was
Yeah.
a big problem with it.
Yeah.
If strikers were
Definitely.
just okay and the trials were not focused around strikers, then that would be different. But since they were the focus, then it
Yeah.
became a big issue.
Also, one of the
Sure.
things that we just have to clarify, even though I'm not probably the best person to say about this, it's not only like the partners were thrown under the bus for no reason really, because it's not only partners that has access to the early beta.
Oh
Or,
yeah, sure. That's true.
so or yeah, early release. So like, I think you're just a scapegoat of a little hate attack there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's
mean-
just kind of like what I was saying. I think that
I mean
that particular
there's an
thing is just
example for everything, you know. You it's just yeah. That's the way
yeah,
it
no,
is.
I mean totally. I mean it's yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. I mean I get that. It's just
Yeah.
it just sucks. Like honestly,
True.
from my perspective, it's like I try to bridge that kind of like I when I first got a partner, it sounds like fucking very student like council president but I've always like wanted to kind of bridge the at least to what I could like the devs to the community and
Yeah.
I yeah it just sucked to kind of just get stabbed by the people in the alpha community because those are people I know them from when I was a player
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
seeing behavior like that is just it's just disheartening because I yeah I just want everybody to have fun and enjoy the game
Yeah.
personally like as someone who I got like I think I got 8th place on the board like I'm just not as good as a player and so like me being at the top of the board is just like not a threat but as someone who did get to play the game or like play the strikers early um and with a grain of salt I don't think that that was like it's like a really big deal honestly like
Yeah.
I don't value the leaderboards as much
Right.
I
Yeah,
feel
I
like Skarn
mean,
was like I
that
said
was
a wash
big problem for me. That's why I stopped for so I'm gonna stop for some weeks now because I like it's giving me serious mental health problems and I don't want that.
I have reached the point where I just don't care about the boards anymore.
Yeah.
Because
I am at
like,
that
I
point
mean,
as well.
at first
yeah
at first
I
I
think
was
it's a good
like,
idea to talk about like how do you guys
Yeah.
feel about trials like
yeah,
the level of it is because I
difficulty.
agree it is like a level of
Yeah.
stress right
Yeah.
where just kind of like stop
Okay.
needing to
So,
stop having to do things
Hmm.
all
go
right.
ahead
So, sorry. Yeah. So,
no
here's
you're
my
good
thoughts on trials right now. So, I at first I was like, when trials first came out, I was like, okay, I really like liked the difficulty. You know, it was something new. I was getting my ass kicked all the time. It was great, right? And then as I continued to play it and on and on and on, like there were some weeks that were pretty good, pretty decent. Like I liked them. And then there were some weeks that were just pure bullshit. Cough, Ember main week.
Which weeks
So
did you like?
Shroud.
um Shroud week was pretty
For
good.
sure.
Yeah, Shroud Week was pretty good.
When the smallest arrived, Gary made me happy.
Reza Week wasn't bad. I like the Reza Week.
I could link a list of
Um,
the weeks and their modifiers if you want to like just glance at them and
yeah.
see.
The worst part is it doesn't surprise me you have that list, Brett held.
What?
Nezaga Week was total BS. That one
Yeah.
was fucking terrible. Um, this current week with Pangar, like, well, I mean, like, I think it's okay. I don't know how to feel about it, honestly. Like the modifier on it, it's like okay, it's making it a bit harder, but like the lightning is just,
Mm.
yeah. I
My issue with
I
Pangar
think
is the stamina, honestly.
yeah, the
But
stamina is. I mean, I think that's I think in a way that's like kind of what Dauntless the kind of challenge Dauntless needs at the moment, but like because there's a time constraint in which you need to do it, it makes it much more frustrating. That's the problem I
yeah,
have with it.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind it if I didn't have to do it under 3 minutes. Like if I had if I had like as much time to do it like 30 minutes, like a normal hunt, then without like, getting penalized for like not doing it under three, then I would be fine with it. Like I would be fine with the challenge it presented. But as it is right now, I'm well, it's more frustrating than fun. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
Sure.
Hmm.
Well,
yeah.
Actually,
someone said it in the stream. It's more like a oh god, German brain. Chore? Do you say chore?
Yeah,
Yeah. I think that fits really well.
exactly.
yeah, I feel the
I
same way.
stopped doing trials like really early on because as the guy in this podcast, I speak as the normal player that is not probably as like good as Big Banana, Lucian, or Revy or Predheld or any of you guys. I kind of stopped early on because first of all, as a repeater main, I didn't really have a lot to solo it under, and I didn't really have a lot of people that would want me on their team because repeaters. And I wasn't really a good repeater player, but and so I don't really feel like the ones that were good. The only one I returned to actually start doing the trials again was when the Ember main came out, and whenever something new came out, I just had to try it. But it became more of a thing that okay, I have to get this because it looks nice. I want this, but I still didn't get to get it because I wasn't really focused enough on it. It became like someone said in chat, a chore. Like oh, you have
Yeah.
to do this, but you don't really want to.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I still got a trials group going with Adani and Koro and Space Shorts and them, and lately we've just been like having a hard time getting ourselves to try because I think it's a combination of stress and just frustration. Um, yeah, we're kind of like, man, we'd love to go for top times, but the amount of time we'd have to commit to it is just completely unreasonable. And like we'd have to wait until the end of the week because any times we put up early are going to get beat unless we're like super cool, like conscious and like have the strat down early in the week, which doesn't really happen. So it's like the early times are scrapped if you're going for leaderboard times for like completion at the end of the week. So you just have to take the leaderboards with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and then there's like also the big factors like RNG and stuff. I don't know. It's just like it's not polished well so far.
Yeah.
I actually think the
And
big
and the
problem is
spawns,
RNG in
the
that sense.
dumbest thing is that you have to look out for the cutscenes if you want to get a good run, you know?
Yeah, it
Mm.
seems different this week with Pangar just standing still in one
I
spot.
mean, you can still trigger it if you do specific
But
like things, you
but
know?
if you know how to trigger it and you know how to avoid triggering it, then there's really no thing. There's nothing to be mad about it there. If you know how to avoid it,
Yeah,
just do it.
but like, why is it that way? Why can't they just be locked in place
And
until someone lands in the arena?
who knows?
You know?
Yeah, I completely
I
agree
actually was
that it's
surprised that
stupid.
Skarn wasn't locked in place. I was surprised that he was walking around because
That's true.
normally he's in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with that actually. Like, I really like when the behemoth is walking in place. However, I don't like that like you can manipulate the as long as they fix all the timers. Like when you enter
Yeah.
like the thundercloud, you can alter its timing
Yeah,
by entering late.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the big problem I have mostly with it is so I have two experiences with trials. One is the casual, I'm just trying to get the sub 3, and the other is like me sitting there realizing I have 3 days left and I want to get this strike in a top 5 position, right?
Yeah.
And I think the when we were going for top 5, that was probably the most miserable experience. On multiple levels, I think the biggest issue was just the fact that we had to do so many rounds to get the right RNG. Um, and so many just wasted runs, and you're taking your pods, you're waiting a minute, right? You're spending all this effort, and then it's just 2 seconds in the arena, you're all committing suicide because it doesn't matter anymore. um
Yep.
and I think that's like a really really bad experience I was having there. I was not feeling like I was having a competition for fun, I was having a
Yeah.
competition to
True.
complete my collection of titles.
Yep.
And I think the sub 3 experience is in that sense a lot better because the group's confident, so we know we can just get it. We just need to do it a few times. Um, I think the problem I mostly experience with trials is that after 2 weeks, the freshness of the experience was gone.
Oh yeah.
And only sort of the modifiers became clearer as a separate problem from the behemoth in my mind. So where in the first week it was like, oh my god, this Naizaga can do all these cool things. I'm getting wrecked all over the place. And of course it was a mess, right? But it was like it was a mess that Naizaga made. Right now, when I'm doing Pangar, I'm like, oh, I got shocked by random lighting. Cool. But it's not Pangar that's doing this. This is just
Yep.
trials that's making me suffer. Um,
Mm.
and I think that's a big problem for trials, at least from my perspective, is that because it is sort of not connected in this way, it becomes way harder, sort of to have a good time with it. And then there's also like the marks, of course, which just means that I have to play on a weekly basis. When I'm not playing, I feel bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like how you were saying, it's like it's really nothing like new, and it's just frustrating every week.
This is the
if you're
first.
going for top times, you know.
This is the first week that there has been 0 new modifiers on the behemoths. Also,
Yeah.
Wait.
Which you can avoid for the most part, you know. That's the
They
that's the
did
biggest
change the
problem.
cursed lightning icon, so that,
what?
Doesn't count.
I'm the only one that probably noticed. The cursed lightning was actually the same as electricity. It didn't have the cloud last time it was in here. And the only reason why I
Yeah.
know that is because I updated the Gamepedia with the file.
Okay.
You know, I would have personally liked to see like this current end game. I feel like hasn't been executed very well in my mind.
Yeah,
I would have
this
liked.
just really fast, Lucian.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
this is something I've wanted to talk about with like a lot of people. Is uh, do you guys think that Dauntless has an end game?
Oh.
No.
No.
No. Well, as much as I want there
You
to
mean like
be a
a
thing,
gameplay loop to do when you have your gear max, that kind of thing?
I just mean
Yeah.
like I mean however you guys interpret late game, because personally I don't like people talk about late game or like end game, and I personally don't think that Dauntless has one. And
Yeah. End
so
game for
when
me
you
is
we
like big as
I
raids, which take like
yeah.
multiple days to complete, even, you know, because they're hard. I don't
well,
know.
Okay, I
I
think
don't
you're
I
the
mean
only
personally
one.
I don't like Molten Core
But like
from
not
like
for
you look back
leaderboards, you
on
know, but like just like with friends going in there, or guild raids or whatever.
Right.
I
It's like
think
you have this.
the trials
Oh,
experience is significantly increased when you're playing with 4 friends, or like you know it's
Yeah,
four
of
friends
course.
going in, not trying to get a
It's not
top time,
just
just
you
trying to get
screaming,
their
it's
sub
four
three.
guys screaming.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially
Yeah.
if you're playing with Sunny, that guy can scream. It's a lot of fun.
As much as how calm he seems in all of his videos, when you meet him in person, he's a different person. Which is really fun though.
Oh,
But
God.
I
Like,
think. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I've been doing the same goddamn thing for 2 years, playing this game.
Yeah.
So if you ask me like what the fuck like is the end game in this game,
Your time.
just like all I do is help people. That is the end game. I just help people with the same hunts again and again and again and again
Fashion.
and again and again.
Fashion's the end
And
game, someone
if you tell me
says.
fashion, if you tell me fashion is end game, then I
Okay,
guess.
so
But
I don't view it entirely that way. So I haven't been playing that much, right? So I'm sort of in between that stage. But to me, one of the big things was okay. So we have mastery, and we have all items at max, right?
Yeah.
Those were sort of my you have completed the game things,
Yeah.
the checklist. But I don't think that Dauntless has a different loop for the start of the game versus the end game. You're doing the same things.
Yeah, that's yeah.
The only thing that I have noticed is that there's a increase in chores that you're doing as you're trying to complete more and more of the game. Because you have these patrol chests you need to take care of. There's a hunt pass I need to work for. There's trials that are up and running right now, so they need some attention. There's just a lot of stuff sort of that wants me to play 4 rounds of this and 2 rounds of that. So I'm a
Mm.
lot less free in what I'm actually queuing for to be sort of optimal. Um, but I think in terms of sort of having a different experience or an end game, so to speak, I don't think Dauntless has any of that. I don't really think it needs it either, though. Um,
Hmm.
Although I would like some more interesting goals to work towards, because I don't think the
Yeah.
goals that we
Yeah.
currently have are interesting in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I think we talked about
Mm.
this in an earlier podcast when we talked about what they were gonna do. Is the Rams like we have a lot of mats that we can't use once we've reached end like quote unquote end
yeah,
game. So
Rams anyone?
Rams. think we're
And
So
now, oh my
like,
god, Ace chips.
oh yeah.
Yes.
quick check. How much
Aether
Rams do you guys have?
the dust.
Aether dust, Jesus.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Aether
Not in
dust,
game.
Like
guys.
they need to
I
do
don't even
something that can incorporate all the items that we're never gonna use because else it's just gonna be like boring because like most of us in here except probably me has finished mastery at this point, a lot of it at least.
Yeah.
So like there's no reason for you to really go in and like break parts, interrupt, or like do wound. Even though I don't think wound is the best thing in here. I think not a lot of people here play pike.
Well, it's just
I
not
mean,
good.
you had
It,
to.
I'm not saying anything. But I think they just need to like. I think we talked about the thing about the guild where you can probably use materials in conjunction with your
Yeah.
guild to do
Oh yeah, we talked
something.
about that, right?
For
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
a guild hall or anything for
Yeah.
anything that would just make us have the ability to use all the otherwise useless materials that we
Yeah.
have.
And as I said, like I don't know, like guild rates or something, and you could like I don't know, you have like a big chest where where all of the guild members could put in like amount of I don't know rams or something to get whatever I don't know what, but like something
Yeah.
so we can use our rams.
Well, there about the note of there being a lot of different things to work towards is with the cells and the hunt pass and then like trials and all this and that. And people are like, we still need more stuff to do. And I'm thinking, we already have a lot of different goals to do, like to work towards. I mean, I would imagine the reason we want more is because the goals that we have are just not that sad. Like they're not enjoying
Yeah.
the current goals. So it's not like we're lacking content. It's more like the content we have is getting stale really fast. So I think
I
that's
mean,
like,
it's
yeah,
it's redressing of the same content that we've been doing since alpha. Like that,
yeah,
I think that's kind of like the big problem for players like us, is that ultimately it's still killing Shroud. You know, like as quote unquote end game. Like we're still
Yeah.
just killing Shroud, and we've killed it
Why?
so many times.
Why
And
have
so
we? Why have? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
I
Go ahead.
no no
Alpha.
you're totally good. I just I feel like we do need more activities.
Oh
And
yeah.
this is like the thing I've been kind of ranting about a lot is like we need things to do outside of just slaying. Like what does a slayer do
I don't know. Plant some
when it's
shrooms. I don't know.
yeah yeah exactly. And so to touch on the guild hall, I think it's a big issue in MMOs when games make new zones and it becomes like the new hub,
Yeah.
and then the
Oh
old
yeah.
hub becomes a ghost town. And so that's, to me, like that's like the big flaw of a guild hall, is why do I go to Ramsgate when I have my own cool like player housing
Yes.
um, sort
Yeah.
of thing. And so, and Ramsgate is already feeling pretty ghost town these days. Like prior to 1.0, it still kind of feels that way, and I'm sure it feels that way on like say Australian servers and just like regions that don't have as many players on them. The and so it's just like, what do you do about that? Because I want player housing as much as the next, or like guilds, or you know whatever. As much as the next person, but I also don't want to see the hubs and just kind of. I don't want the game to feel like it's always empty because I'm always alone in like a guild hall or in Ramsgate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
was thinking like that like the entry to like the guild halls or whatever it's gonna be, um, are like in Ramsgate, and you have to walk up there, you know, to and press E to get
Okay,
into,
but
so you
like,
don't like connect select it from the menu or something, you know.
okay, I can see where you're going there, but there's a prime example which has been in guild halls ever since they were basically invented, right? And that is, if you have a guild hall and it is a useful place to be, you always want to be there. And if it's not a useful place to be, you never want to be there. And it's going to be one of the two. It's kind of like playing the best weapon for the top leaderboards. Once we have figured it out, it's the only thing we're doing.
Yeah.
And we're not going to change it. As much as I would like the fantasy of a guild hall, because I am all about that stuff, I don't think it works. I just think the mechanics side of things is supporting it. Like, there's just, what would there be? A crafting place? Well, we already
Yeah,
have
but
wills.
still they could like implement like guild user interface, you know.
Oh, I'm not
Like
against
Mm.
expanding it.
like the mastery, but like just for the guild where you can whatever. I don't know what you can do there, but like
Yeah, no,
So
that's
totally.
still
something.
like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the loop. That's like the loop. I imagine that Phoenix Labs actually falls into this. It's just like, but it's still just slaying behemoths, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
Yeah.
exactly.
that's
Yeah, no, I mean,
and so
yeah,
you
for
need to
sure
like
they gotta
really
bring.
mix it up and shake it up.
Yeah,
So
There's
yeah,
only
I,
one thing we can do in this game, and that is hunt a single behemoth on an island.
well,
That is
hey, well,
it.
or
so
just
hey
on
guys,
yourself.
sorry for being
Hey.
late, but
Hey, man.
I mean, Revy knows, like back in 2017, I posted on the alpha forums about having like a talent tree type deal for the guilds, and to expand on that, have unique or different objectives while you're on the island. So like right now we just gather and then we slay.
Yeah.
Put some hidden stuff where you actually got to like learn, put it on like some RNG. So like, I think back when Koshai came out, there was hints that there was going to be caches, and we never saw those caches.
No, they were in game. They were in game.
Oh,
They were in
well,
game for exactly
No.
1 hour, and then they crashed and disabled them.
okay.
They
So
gave
like
like
having,
5 things. That's what they dropped.
yeah, having like guild like caches that you recover for your guild, and that could be part of the guild exp source. And you could have different things. You could have modifiers to just generic hunts that you could do that you unlock once your guild is at a certain level, which can make it harder or something like that for a little bit of guild exp. There's ways to enhance the core gameplay and add some extra stuff in order to make guilds more like a cohesive thing, even though you're just playing with 4 people in an instance.
Yeah.
That doesn't require like a guild hall though.
Yeah, no,
No.
I think
I just wanted
for
to
sure.
focus on like having 2 separate zones away from each other. Like I'm totally all for guild features, and I think that they were, when it comes time to really flesh those mechanics out, and even like the guild interface, Dauntless has Phoenix Labs has vocally said that, you know, we really believe in guilds, and I think that they'll really nail it.
We can only hope.
It's just how right? It's
Hmm.
it,
I don't know.
it's hard. Like I want guilds to be good. I just don't know what they can add that makes it that much different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me.
I know.
So-
If they're gonna like release something for goods, I think they should probably release some more content with it. Like only
Yeah, I
good
mean-
content, you know.
When I hear new content, I just think doing the same old thing just with different things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just
I
I
think
mean
that
I
we got that like Stockholm syndrome.
I mean, yeah, but like
Where it's just like
that's normal. That's like gonna be the same. It's
I
the
mean,
game, you know. That's
the new behemoth is coming, right? Or it's just
yeah.
gonna be the same thing, right? It's just gonna
Yeah.
fucking go in there, probably kill it on our first run, and then get
But-
like
Like,
farm
alright,
it for a
we're
couple
good.
hours.
But what would they
and
have
be
to?
done.
What would they
Yeah,
have
no,
to
why-
do
why
for
would-
us not to get that, you know, effect? That, oh yeah, we're
They
just
can't.
doing the same. Yeah, exactly.
They can't.
It's the core mechanic of the game. That would mean we would have to change the whole, like, you know, a whole perception of the game in order to get
I mean,
this
like
feeling.
different objectives or something. They only have one goal in this game ever. That's to kill behemoths. And like, you
I
know,
just think that they need new activities outside of slaying. Like I don't think it needs to
Yeah.
be like a different way to kill
True.
a behemoth. Like I've been
Sky
fishing.
preaching
Sky
for
fishing,
a while.
yes.
Yeah, or like having your own like farm where you can.
I'm still
Yeah,
running
just
for
Oh,
like
that.
this too.
anything to make farming pots easier, I'm 110% for.
Oh yeah.
I'm just
Okay, but I don't think that should be farming, because that just makes me think about like any farming mobile game ever, and that
Yeah.
gives me really bad vibes.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
it's heyday.
Hey, that pulls in some people.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
really pulls in. Like,
I would love to.
I don't
see...
know how many of you played WildStar, but
Oh yeah.
Oh, I
farming
did.
in WildStar was
Yeah.
that was the hype
Yeah.
of player
I
house.
really enjoyed the trade skills in WildStar. Yeah, I
Oh,
think it's like a superior system to most MMOs these days. So
Yep. For
yeah,
sure.
I mean, I think that the thing is like sky fishing is such an open-ended thing. We're in such like a interesting universe, I guess, where like fishing just doesn't seem possible, right? And so it can just visually it can be interesting. It would be cool if we could go in with groups of people and it was a big ass open like ocean island, like I don't know, I mean Earth, right? Like that's just kind of like how like
I think
small
they should
scale
just
Earth.
Warframe.
Add like flying fish. Just
Yeah.
add flying behemoth fish.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the big thing I want it to hit is it just takes like a little bit of time where you can just kind of chill, and it's not something where you're just like, it's not like this really active mini game where you need to aim a net and then you need to like control the mouse and scroll the mouse wheel
right.
and like do all this
Right.
like really interactive stuff, and just like let me, as a content creator, let me just kind of like hang out with my people and do something, and then maybe at the end of it, well, oh, you got this special lure, oh dude, I got like the 4 pieces of the lure, let's go fight the fishing behemoth, and then you get like a dumbass like floppy tuna skin for your sword, and it's like, you know, like that's something I would want to see, and then you get like a dorky like fisherman transmog, or and you know, just make the grind like really fucking long for that, and it's something to work towards, or you
Yeah.
can just have multiple things like that.
Have a progression
Um,
system to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I mean,
one
it
of
could.
the things that you do bring up when you say a really long grind is this is slightly a different topic, but it's sort of the way grind has been dealt with in Dauntless so far, which is basically, let's just slap a insanely high requirement on it. It must be good now. How do
No,
you guys
I
feel about that?
I think for any future like grinding. I think and I keep harping on this, and Revi, I feel is similar in the mindset. I know Predhelt is. I think they need to make any type of grind in the game facilitate learning core competencies of the game, like building those core competencies and learning how to play the game even just a slightly bit better through those grinding or through that grind, instead of just making an insanely high number of repetitively doing something that doesn't really, like mastery for me, like 60% of it doesn't actually teach you how to play the game better.
Of course it doesn't.
Yeah,
Just
it's
tells you
you're increasing the
was-
chance that you're going to enter a situation that might teach you to get better. And I
Yeah,
think that's like really all you can do. You can't like force someone to care, right? Like
No.
you need to without just like you get a reward, your armor can upgrade more. Like you need to force people into those situations and then like hope that they still want to do it at the end. And that's really hard.
Yeah, I think a good example would be I got into League for a bit. If League of Legends halfway through my game put everything on pause to put me in a screen where it says like, "Hey, we've been noticing you're missing your Q quite often. We're gonna put you in another match real quick to teach you how to actually play, and then you can continue this one." That would be super annoying. I'd be completely infuriated. So yeah, I think teaching stuff halfway, right, or sort of forcing it down somebody's throat, is not the way to go because it's way harder to sort of digest as a player as well.
Well, and then we go back to alpha to closed beta and even closed beta, open beta, where we didn't have such a significant power creep, but players still had to, they were struggling with Hellion because of his mechanics, because they weren't really learning his mechanics and, going for the leg breaks in order to minimize his movement. And I guess I'm stuck in the mindset of I think players should be forced to learn just the core aspects of the game, the things that actually like affect their combat, make it easier for them, make it more fluid for them. I don't think players should be getting to dire heroic or heroic plus not knowing what a boop is and how to do it consistently, given that they learn the tells from the fight.
I think they like, I don't know. I feel like we should get punished more if we get hit.
Yeah.
Power creep.
Because, like,
That's a power creep issue.
Yeah, because like I don't know if I'm playing a boat where I have only 400 HP right now for farming, so I'm fine. But like for most of the people, you get hit, they don't really care.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to my issue with
Putting-
Iceborne, but
Putting 3 revives in the game was a mistake.
That's
Yeah, I feel like it was.
5 healing, 3 stims.
well, and
Yeah,
see,
it's
that's
a
the
lot
thing.
of
Like
healing.
you have all this healing. You have a lot of healing in the game, just not even counting equipment. And
that
you
they're
have
all.
3
I remember
revives
back.
now.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I mean, like when I saw the implementation of Iceborne or the buff to tough and buffs to other things, like I don't think you should ever. And I have the same issue with like DPS bonuses as well, so it's not just one sided. But I never think you should be rewarded heavily for not actively doing something in the game.
I remember back when you used to have to craft healing, and you could swap it out with like
Oh,
more
yeah.
damage or
Oh,
something like
yeah.
that. Like it was an option. It wasn't like you have a lot of healing no matter what you're doing. And I mean, I'm not saying that like that was a good thing. Having to craft healing obviously is like
It was an
not
option.
good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but like it's nice that it's easy for a lot of like for basically everyone to get into it. It's just that having that like safety always present is a little, I don't know. It just seems like it kind of limits people's desire to like
Getting better.
get past hurdles
Yeah,
in this.
yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
I think at least with like our group, I really resonate with what Pedel said. Is that basically like not everybody's looking for that challenge. Like there are people probably play Dauntless to just unwind. Like and honestly,
Yep.
I think a majority of players probably don't even see Hellion. And so how is there supposed to be a desire, right? When you're not even, it's just like people are still trying to figure out, like, first time players or newer players are trying to figure out if they even like the game. How are they supposed to care? And you just get to Hellion, so like you can get to Hellion really fast. And it's so common for me to just be like, oh man, I've been playing for a weekend and I'm already on Shroud. It's just like there's no way that you can learn all the things about Dauntless in 2 days. And I think that's kind of the issue for me. To touch on the Iceborne thing, I if I'm really honest, with no foresight from Phoenix Labs or anything, I think that we are veering towards a way that actually just gets rid of cells entirely. Personally,
Yeah, I think so.
At this point, yeah, that would probably be the best move.
I think the signs are kind of there, and I would be very, very happy. I think that the cell system and the middleman is a very short-sighted system that really hinders customization. And I just hope that they see that, like, well, we're just getting rid of the cell system, and so we'll just put in all this fun stuff, and if people like it, great. If not, then okay, then we have the cell system we currently have. Like, there are a handful of cells that just don't matter, right? No one uses.
Yeah.
Well, there's bonuses
cores
that
are
don't matter.
lackluster. You don't get the loot box effect from a core. It's just like, does it have overpower? Great. If it doesn't have Rage Hunter, great. That's all you're fishing for.
That's one thing I want to talk about, actually. Like the lack of diversity currently. That's like one big issue I really have with the game. It's just, as you say, overpower, Rage Hunter, Rage, blah blah blah, so on and so forth, right? Like, I want, like, I feel like, if they can't invest a lot of resources into creating different ways for us to play, like, at least, like, create interesting behemoth encounters that force you to approach them differently, right? So, like, we have all these useless cells that we never use, and all these useless perks.
Yeah.
All these useless perks that never get used. Like, create behemoths that force you to use them, or like,
True.
yeah.
Would you like
Well, I
having
think-
to swap your stuff that often? Because
don't
I
know.
hate it when I have to slot Molten for a fire behemoth.
I honestly, like, I would love to see more interesting mechanics that force you to approach encounters differently.
Well, so
Yeah.
that goes back to my issue with, and it's kind of circling back to the trials. I think, like, booping is a counterplay. That is a counterplay mechanic. I think they should be focusing on making mechanics that you have to pay attention to and that have some type of counterplay to them. So, like, for example, modifiers in trials, we should be able to take that Tempest Storm and go, like, dodge under Pangar and get him hit by that lightning storm and have some actual counterplay rather than just, oh, hey, I just got to dodge this. Same thing with, like, Nezaga. Like, let's say, his orbs don't damage him, but you can push him into Aether Charge mode sooner by having the orbs hit him. And then, getting that large window of stagger by breaking the big pylon. There's different ways that they can approach current mechanics and future mechanics to add counterplay and make the fights just more interesting, more dynamic.
I'm
like.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
Okay. I think that the current setup that they have, right, where they're sort of trying to have these counter mechanics, so far has not really paid off in the way they want, because all that's been doing is expanding the gap between good and novice players, right?
Oh, right. In terms of, like, cells and loadouts.
Yeah, exactly. Cells and that all just adds up to this kill time, which I think is really hurting active players. Because what's happening here is that a normal player gets the normal experience, which is a 10 minute ish hunt, right?
Yeah.
And they sort of try this out and they have a big challenge there. But for us, that's not there. There's no
Right.
challenge. It doesn't take time. We just whack it until it stops moving.
Yeah, we just tank it essentially. We like have to
Yeah.
dodge here and there, but like it's basically I'm gonna kill it before it kills me. It's
I
like
have been
Yeah.
face tanking with half health every heroic behemoth I've been doing, and I've been playing the entire time, and I've not died yet. I'm just. It doesn't matter if they hit me, whatever. I'll just hit them
Well,
harder.
it's like
and
we're
that goes
strong.
back
Like yeah,
to
go on.
power creep. Like what Revy said is like if we take away or half the effectiveness of like some of the bonuses and honestly I think some of the useless bonuses they just have to remake and make feasible.
But I want
But
fun bonuses. Make them fun. If
Or
they're bad,
creating
make them fun.
encounters that
you
force
you
to
can have
use
you can
that.
have some like creative bonuses like so that you can do flash pike builds and stuff like that. But I think there's a balance that, in my opinion, in my honest opinion, I think Phoenix Labs is losing sight of between having a fun arcadey casual game with uh, a high skill ceiling in game. Because, like Revy said, like some people are just not even getting to Hellion, or some people are not even getting to Heroic or Heroic Plus until like 2-3 months in, and they're just taking their time, and that's fine. And I think everything leading up to finishing Heroic Pluses should be catering to those kinds of players. But I think once they hit Heroic Plus and they go into what is starting to shape the end game, like he said, I don't think there's an end game yet. I think Trials is one small piece of what could be the overarching end game, multiple different modes. Because I mean, it's an arcadey ARPG. That is what Dauntless is, and I think arcadey means having options of how you want to tackle that end game versus having just that one raid or that one in game loop that defines the end game. But
Yeah.
they need to make everything after Heroic Plus challenging. Like I think Trials developed a good balance of that. Like you have normal, everything that's power creep is locked behind normal, and it's a small step up from Heroic Plus, really, and it takes very minimal
Like,
development of the player to get that sub 3.
For
But
normal or
for normal,
Yeah,
oh
for
yeah,
normal.
for sure.
Dauntless, and then Dauntless difficulty is split into 2 different groups. There's the top 100, which to most experienced players is a joke, and isn't is a step up from doing normal, but it's not something where players have to grind their eyes out. They're not even going through 80% of what people trying to maintain a top 5 slot are going through. They're not going through the repetitive loading screens. They're not going through, multiple runs where you're messing up in the first 5 seconds because somebody died or you died. And I think there's a separation there. My problem is I think top 5 or maintaining top 5, especially over multiple weeks, is nowhere rewarding enough for the pain and
Oh yeah.
dedication it takes. We get a title that is only seen in 10% of the game. And if you play with a regular group, nobody's ever going to see that title. I mean, I play in pugs every once in a while, but most pugs aren't going to know what that title is. They don't know what it means. So why am I going through this excruciating pain of maintaining a top 5 and I don't get
What's a
anything out of it?
sufficient reward for you, though? Like,
I
how do you
think
reward like 50 hours of time?
You
In
could do
I
like an
think-
aura
number
or
1?
something, you know.
I think you do an aura. You do cosmetics that players see. Something separate from the top 100. That's the first step. The second step would be bonus marks. And that's flat out. The whole point of doing this every single week is for the marks. And top 5 should be getting more marks. There should be incentive to do it other than just unlocking. And make those top 5 top 5 cosmetics expensive. Make them a grind, but make it so that if you're continuously getting top 5 every week, you're getting something more than what you would just be doing to do a sub 3.
Wouldn't you think that that would inspire more competitiveness and like thus like it'd still feel unrewarding though? Like more people are going to be competing for those top spots the more that you reward it, and so you end up grinding more because people keep overtaking you.
Then
like
expand
that-
it to be more than top 5. Expand it to be top 20. Even top 20 would still be less than 10% of the player base.
Yeah, but I think the
Oh.
problem, at least from the experience of somebody, I don't like doing trials. So but I really like every reward in this game, so I will be doing them. Which is a problem because it means if you reward the top 5 highly, I'll go and compete for them. And I've done this before, and I hate it. So please don't make
Yeah.
me, right? Sort of, and
True.
I understand that is like a small subgroup, but this group exists. So yeah, I don't know. I'm personally not
So
a fan.
my counter to that would be, I mean, I think Trials as itself needs a lot of smoothing out, and like I said, I really think they need a lot more counterplay in the modifications. But I think another thing that, like Revy said, you have a lot more people competing for the top 5. They need to find out a mechanic where swapping one player out isn't gonna knock somebody out of the top 5.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's
I
a
think
couple of
that
games that do it well.
I think that everybody here can agree that the leaderboards are not operating up to snuff. Like
Oh no.
No.
I think I don't even think that that's a debate. And to me, the leaderboards themselves are sign to me that they wanted to implement a competitive mode but not have to worry about it while they work on other
Yes,
activities.
that is too true.
And
That is too true.
and because of that, and because I take that as almost fact, everything that has to do with trials, I'm just like, they can fix this later, and whenever that later is, like, that's when I will probably take trials the most seriously.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think for solos they should expand it to top 10, top 20, and then for
yeah.
group
Definitely, yeah.
expand it to top 10. Because it there should be a grind, like Revy said, but there shouldn't be too much of a grind. There shouldn't be, I'm gonna wake up 4 hours before reset and grind out a top 5 time. That way nobody. But
Yeah, I mean
that
that
could,
was like that was a thing that happened on the spreadsheet. Like that there's behaviors that you just can't prevent with a standing system that's time based and you know when the
yeah.
reset time is. So I feel like that's such like a small thing because that's hard. Like with current iteration of trials actually being like, if you've been grinding it all week, it's less hard. But I mean, then you still put in the time. It's not like people are just like sneaking out of nowhere and getting a top time, 5 minutes before the reset. Like I just think
Yeah.
that's
But
unrealistic.
you also, like I said, back to rewarding. If you're not gonna like wait for that time, like we've seen in previous boards, and you're gonna grind out over the course of the week, there's no consistent reward for that. Like
No,
why?
I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement. I think that more reward from the trial is going to be better. And I honestly, I would hope that in these top 20 spots, if we're not receiving changes to consumables, I would like to see little like booster packs of potions. Just that it doesn't need to be like pound for pound. Like I'm using 6 potions a trial. I would really like to see at least getting some of my my effort back uh, as a reward.
Yeah.
It sucks to come out empty-handed. Like if you got the 21st spot, that's like the real feels bad. If you're if we're rewarding top 20,
Mhm.
getting a little bit back, I still think that would be nice. I think that would be a good way to soften the blow, and I think that's really all you can do without like giving people too much, and where the everyday player kind of just starts complaining about how top tier players just get so much. But rewarding the top 5% is really difficult, and you see it in a lot of other games. World of Warcraft, Mythic Rating, Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is actually pretty good against rewarding their players, but a lot of that is cosmetic, and so if you're not wild about transmog and cosmetics, then you're just kind of like
Well,
SOL.
I don't think top level players really care about getting better gear out of this. I think it's having
True. Yeah.
cosmetics that feel rewarding.
Yeah.
That really make you stand out, because remember when this game first was created, they're like, yeah, you're gonna have to earn your armor, and people are gonna know you're a badass because you have that armor. And even
Yeah.
with trials right now, it's like, okay, get top 100 once, and here have have all the gear that, you know, people in the top 5 are still, you know, competing over, but not really getting rewarded with.
Okay, I think
Yeah, I
yes, but I
think
think the bigger problem here is titles, though, because I think the problem with the way they're rewarding titles
it's
right now.
cosmetics in general.
Rewarding like titles.
No, I mean, like,
Well-
look at flares, look at banners, look at
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a lot of
Yeah.
that stuff you see for 2 seconds. You know, even
Yes.
landing animation.
yes.
Like, I think landing animations are really important, and I think they're really good as like a cosmetic. I think there's too much emphasis on them because you only see them once a hunt.
Yeah, but like titles, you only see them in the area.
No, titles are scuffed. Oh, titles
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
I think the problem with titles that I mostly have is the frequency of obtaining titles is a lot higher than compared to the MMOs I come from, right? They're sort of the, oh my god, that guy has a title, which is just
Oh yeah.
a thing on itself. And here in Dauntless, that's not the case. Everybody and his mother gets a title.
Yeah.
You could probably get 2 as well.
Heck,
And the problem with that is that it just
That's-
means that when I see a title, I don't even know what it means. If I see somebody with the Dauntless, like, I know what it is, but can I
Yeah.
realistically expect anybody to understand? And if that's the case, why would I wear this title if nobody knows what it means anyway? May as well select one that I actually like.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, like for example, like I have Destiny 2 in the background while we're doing this. Like in Destiny 2, like you if you see a person with a title, you know exactly what they did to get that title, because titles are very, very well not very common amongst the general player base, and the fact that you can see the title under their name in like, you know, in like the open areas in the fucking hub, like you should be able to see titles in Ramsgate as well under the player name. Like, I don't understand why that's not a thing. Like, why is that not a thing? And
Yeah.
It doesn't help
less
that guild
titles.
tags
I would
mean
imagine
nothing.
it's. I would imagine that it has to do with like Epic integration.
Well, also like
I think so. Yeah.
Even if they did show the titles don't have the same effect as somebody walking past the leaderboards and seeing your name up on the leaderboards, which I feel should be equal. Seeing the Dauntless title should be like, oh hey, that guy was in the top 5, you know.
Yeah.
It just doesn't help also that there's like, I mean, we've been
There's
talking
a
about
bajillion
guilds a
of them.
lot. We've been talking about guilds a lot. We've been talking about like all these cosmetics. We've been talking about trials a lot. But like the fact that in town we see our guild tag, which has that doesn't mean anything. It means absolutely nothing. You can join a guild, leave a guild whenever you want, and there's no functionality to it. It's just a name that you
It's
came
a
up with.
glorified friends list.
I was
Yeah.
guildless for a long time before Sura decided to make Aether charged.
That's another thing. Like, if they can add the guild name below your tag, then why not title above your?
That's
your
a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
The only reason I said that is because if the game need to keep updating your name, because I know that if you change your epic tag, it will like update it in game as well. But that could easily be a check that has nothing to do with names. It might just like pull that data from the Epic games,
but
I'm
yeah,
just
I
trying to
mean,
think of possible outcomes.
titles and stuff doesn't have like doesn't have to do anything with.
I definitely don't think
Right? Or I mean,
the rewards are sufficient enough for the time invested. I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Not to be the killer of conversations, but I know I'd said we don't have a plan for what we're gonna talk about, but I've never had this moment where we had talked for an hour about nothing besides that was like hadn't anything to do with this update.
It's the hot topic. Man.
Yeah, I know, but like it's amazing that we were able to do this.
all
Like
right.
we're
So
getting over
I
so
mean,
many.
we're talking about
We're getting over so many
Dauntless as a
topics
whole,
right now. Yeah. Like
Should we
we've
move
never
on to
covered this
the
many
bounties?
topics in so short of a time that was not related to this.
Oh, we can move on.
We can,
Right.
No, you can continue. It's just
No, I mean,
It's
I
just
think
so
we're
to
at a
let
good
everyone
point
know.
where we're ready to like, you know, talk more about 1.0 specifically in a sense, because there's a
So,
lot of stuff.
everyone
How do you
got
guys
everything
feel about
off
the
their
bounty
heart.
system?
The
Let's
balance?
talk about
Yeah,
the
I'm
bounty
good.
system.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Yeah,
bounty.
Bounty system.
Yeah.
It's boring.
So was there like a bug where like people had more bounty tokens than others?
Yeah,
the
I was
start?
one of them.
Because I had
I had
50.
6.
and
I
some
had
people
10.
only had 10. Yeah, that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, I'm only at level 30 right now on the hunt pass, but I have 62 tokens right now.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, it feels like even faster than the weeklies.
It is.
Over time, it is faster than weekly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
you can do
it's
more per
going to
week.
for people like us. We play all
Yeah.
the time, right?
As a person
I
that
mean,
don't
yeah, but,
play
like,
all the
that's-
time, I reached like hunt past 20 in like no time at all. And
Yeah.
it just surprised me, and then I've just been lazy and not doing anything so far.
Yeah, you get what you get out of it, or you
Yeah.
get what you put into it, rather.
Yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
think
but,
that's the
like-
best way to do something like that. That's how a lot of battle passes are.
I think I'm only like
as-
26 right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me check what I'm.
You got 24 more days, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, I
So
think I
I'm
think I reached
17.
50 after 2 days.
That's
Okay, maybe I played a little. I don't know.
maybe I didn't get any sleep,
like-
food.
I'm
go
like,
to
I don't get
bed.
what I'm not doing efficiently here. How am I only 26? I'm like, I heard it was really fast.
Exactly.
I think there's specific bounties that are just vastly better. Like any
Oh,
of
yeah, for
the
sure.
patrols or hunts with a specific weapon, especially if it counts as 2.
Yeah.
And like right now I have 3 that are striker specific. So if I do
Yeah.
striker in about 4 hunts, I will have 3 bounties.
See,
that feels
see,
good.
a thing that surprised me the most is the difference between bounties people pick. Because I remember some days when I came home from vacation when the patch dropped, I talked with Sarah and Brettheld about like what bounties they like the most, and I think it was you, sir, that said you wanted like the gatherables more. Like you want to gather more.
Oh yeah, I
Right,
saw that.
I prioritize gatherables at
See,
any given time.
I don't really do that a lot. I mostly go for the interrupts and the like complete hunt when weapon counts as 2, and that really surprised me. Like it reaches out more than it's not a repetitive task.
Okay, but
you
I
have
do
to
think
do.
there's objectively bad and objectively good bounties.
Exactly,
I also
yeah, yeah.
think
Oh, yeah.
the current state of the different rarities
Yeah.
is super weird
would
because
be-
higher
yeah.
rarity is practically the same amount of work. You just get way more for it for some reason.
Yeah, it's like I would be fine with bounties if the amount of effort you put in was like suiting for the reward you got, but there's
Yes.
no sense of that at all. You can
No.
have 3 different bounties that are all worth 20. One of them says hunt any behemoth, the other one says pursue a behemoth, and the other one says like it's like there's 3 things that
Yeah, some of them
essentially are the exact same thing.
cohesive.
Some of them are more specific, but you have to do the same amount of them for all 3. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
The 20s
don't
should
think-
be like something you do along the way of doing a 40 or 100. And then the 40s should be like somewhat of a challenge, like the, deal X amount of damage to an enraged behemoth or get part breaks during enrage. And then the 100 should be something of a challenge, something you're working towards over multiple.
Mm.
I'm of very varying opinion. I don't mind varying. Like to me, everything being like this well balanced, like cohesive, structured, system, it doesn't bother me. Like, at the end of the day, I'm going to finish the pass, and so like honestly, I find the bounty system very boring at face value,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think it's the best way that you could iterate like a dailies and weeklies system, and because of that, like I don't like I'm with Sierra. Like I'll grab the gathering stuff. Like I like being rewarded for the activities that I like to do, and so if you don't want to do the things that don't make sense, then just don't do them, right? Like you get so many tokens that you can re-roll them. You can
Yeah.
there's so many things that you
Yeah.
can do to just not do them, and what's going to happen is they're going to see, oh, people don't like those cards, and then they'll change them, right? Like that's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's just how it's going to go.
Yeah, but like,
I think the wounding cards are all like
Yeah,
you think
no,
avoided?
no.
Really? I go for them all the time. They're actually
Really?
super fucking easy.
Which ones?
But it's not that they're easy.
Yeah,
I think
dude,
it's I think
the
it's
most
more
easy
the...
ones are like part damage and stuff.
Oh
in
yeah,
my opinion.
and
Yeah,
I think
100%.
Jet-
Like you can do the
Stagger
silver
right
wound
now.
card in one hunt. Like you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
do the silver wound in one hunt. Like no joke, you can you take the strikers, acidic 3 with the bolt, adamant bolt, and you get to choose exactly like where the bolt goes, and it's just like boom, 1500 wound damage, 1500 wound damage, like every single bolt, and it's wild. Like it's so
Yeah.
easy. So I actually take the wound ones all the time.
Okay, I'm taking notes here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, give me a sec. Let me write this down.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to pick it, but it's just so good compared to all the other ones that, like, I mean, it's a no-brainer most of the time. I mean, the general
Yeah, I mean-
gatherables too. Like, gather 100 of anything. I can get that in like one hunt.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
that I can't.
How can you farm 100 in one?
Yeah,
hunt?
Sorry, I got 98 in one hunt like earlier today.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but like overall, not just one specific one. You know.
The specific gatherables are such a pain in the butt because they take like 10 times longer than the
Yeah.
gather any type. It's just
Yes.
that's what I mean by like at
But, like,
least
that's my
give a
point,
sensible
is-
reward.
Okay, but here's the point that I have with this is that essentially the gather any type is my gold rarity card. That's the actual gold card to me. It's not the one that has number 100 on it with the rewards. It's the one that tells me that I can just gather anything rather than only Wrathworth, or, well, I wish it was a Wrathworth card because there's none. But like only I think there's, which one's terrible? Heart Lily. Heart Lily's
yeah,
pretty
hard
terrible.
Lily.
So yeah, that's sort of, I feel you on that one.
I've never gotten a gather any like type. I've only gotten
Yeah,
gather
can I quickly
gather
interject?
hard Lily.
Oh yeah, go for it.
One of my viewers asked if we would hold this podcast on a regular schedule. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but
I'm down.
Like it's definitely a
feels nice to
possibility
have.
to do that, but
could
it's
do that.
more of a do we always have like things to talk about, and also gathering people for the podcast is also not really the easiest. I know I can most of the time get like Aod and Syrah, and also you because you sometimes like request them, but like
I'm also here.
yeah I know, but you've only been here once.
Well, I think
that we
What?
could now. We have a
Twice.
more
Twice.
established like
Yeah.
cast.
So
but
so my
I kind of like
My
having
issue is-
the ability to like invite anyone onto here because I don't think of the podcast as I think I've told about this before with Sarah when it was actually not my idea to even start the podcast. It was actually Sarah and I think it was Pret and Reflex that made a joke about it, and then I kind of might have taken that too literal, and just done this. So we can definitely do this, but we need to like get a permanent kind of cast in for doing this. But I think we
Yeah,
can talk more
personally,
about
I
We
mean,
can talk-
I totally agree. Like, I think there's only so many times that we can just kind of like get what's off our chest before we just kind of keep beating a
A
dead
dead horse.
beating a
but,
dead horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
and I mean, I think that as long as we're all civil, and I'd love to be a guest on this podcast,
You're
on
very
the
welcome.
regular. Yeah,
I think-
so,
I
think-
mean,
if we don't have things to talk about specifically, honestly, like, I mean, many of you know my stance on the Reddit as a source of feedback. I definitely think having people who are generally, we have varying thoughts about the game, we have varying stances, but I think we could definitely come up with actual solutions, or at least talk through some possible solutions. And I mean,
I
community could expand on that.
yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying because even though I know a lot, whenever I see you posting stuff, Aoden, on the Reddit, it's kind of getting maybe overlooked, but getting it more explained to you like the way we're doing it here is a bit easier because reading a text and getting something explained by a person is more, they can understand you more than with the text because you can't really
Yeah.
get your point through because they don't know your tone or however you're trying to explain it, or anything. So
Mm.
definitely. But I think this should be a topic we should talk about more after the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I'll definitely be on for doing it. We just have to figure out how.
Okay.
So
We were talking about bounties.
yeah, bounties. If we're done with
Yeah.
that, we can talk about the our new boy.
Yeah, but like, did they say anything about like people getting different amounts of?
I don't think they've
tokens?
addressed it.
Was
but
it like? I mean, it clearly
To my
was a
knowledge,
bug.
they have. To my knowledge, that they're at least looking into like the multi-token thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Okay.
Okay.
whether or not it's fixed is questionable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fixed. It might have been fixed, but it's not that something we can check because we can't really reset our hunt pass. To get the. It would be fun though, if you just have enough time. I'll just do it one more time.
Right.
So let's talk about our new boy, the Stormclaw.
Oh,
Thoughts on the
I'm
Storm?
fighting him right now. He's pretty good, I guess.
His mastery is still bugged, right? Even though you
I
get
just
the
killed him.
sub 3 and stuff, it won't count. I think. Still. And
Didn't they hotfix that?
I got my
recently?
sub 3.
yeah, I know.
It counted.
But did it count?
Yeah.
Because I
it
got
said it
sub
counted.
3 5 times now.
Yeah,
and
it's
didn't
currently
Did you fight
bugged.
the dire version?
Yeah, it's currently bugged. It will just repeatedly like complete, and it will give you EXP for some reason. So.
Hey,
Oh,
Evan,
it doesn't
know what's going
actually
on there.
complete it. It
Oh,
says it
what?
completes
No,
it,
it
and
does
then it
not.
doesn't.
I
No,
still-
So you're saying
no,
I can farm Behemoth Mastery just doing sub 3?
Yes.
Does?
Yep.
Oh.
I think I'm gonna go and learn up because I'm
Oh
so.
yeah, and somehow did they change something like for the values after the update with the mastery? Because when I was 49 behemoth mastery for the update, and after the update I was like 50 all of a sudden.
I don't think they changed.
Yeah, they changed some values, it seems, right?
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that one? Because I personally really like that they're doing that, although I would have liked a different overhaul.
Well,
I
I
don't
think some of the mastery is a little much. Like
I'm
the
looking at
Behemoth
Valamir.
mastery.
I don't.
Look at
There
Valamir.
there are
Yeah.
just some things they didn't mention in their
Well,
notes. I think.
again, yeah, that I'm not a fan of them not mentioning notes.
Yeah.
Like, and I think Creature responded to me on Reddit about that, and he said, some stuff is just so minor, like why include it on the notes? But like,
Molten, hello.
you have to
interrupt.
Yeah, you-
Valamir.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Molten
Dude,
got
my
fucking
Molten is
ninja
flying.
nerfed.
My Molten is flying so high above me I can't collect it sometimes. I don't know what's wrong.
I think it's. I mean, I don't. While Creature is a dev, I feel like it's probably that their workflow.
Yeah.
I mean, just historically, you can look at the patch notes and you'll see patch notes missing and missing and missing and missing. And
Yeah.
some of them are like really big changes, and some of them are really small changes, which tells me that it's just like patch notes are either not written by some like a dev that's actively changing the logs and or like managing a log, and maybe it's like a group effort, or some changes just
Well,
don't get documented, right?
you
Like,
have
I
to
just-
you have to be careful with that, because like when Mastery was introduced and the fact that the hunt pass affected it, and nowhere in the game did it say it did. And for 2 weeks, we said, hey, can you make an announcement on this? Can you say something about it? And I held back. I was told by multiple people to shut up and not say anything. And I mean, to me, that like, even if the intention was not like to hide that from us, there's no way from a PR standpoint that it's not going to seem that way.
I think the big problem back then was that the
like the
assumption
hunt pass
that
mastery thing.
No,
Yeah,
basically,
that it affected
yeah.
EXP.
Basically, the assumption was that it would affect every check mark by a set percentage rather than only the XP. So at the time we were doing math and we were crunching the numbers, and we just found out that it worked for XP, and then that was sort of the only indicator we had. So we were pretty furious about the whole thing until we realized it's only the XP. But I think,
I mean, I specifically remember that situation, and I remember like because I was being paid to make sponsored content about that, like the hunt pass that season. I
Mhm.
remember specifically raising a stink. I was just like, people are not going to like the fact that, and then that this is happening, and uh, I remember them telling me that was like mastery only, and so they actually had us explain it in our videos. Like that was like another thing. But the and so if they didn't describe it very well in their like their blog for that season, because it was the ninja season, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I believe I believe
no,
is when that
no,
got
no,
implemented.
It was
no.
before
It's
that.
before. It's before.
It was,
That's the
yeah.
point. We found out the devs didn't know about it either. Like two people did know,
Okay,
and then
then
that's how they
yeah,
fixed
if it wasn't that season, then yeah,
it.
then
Yeah,
everything I just said is
that's probably why they made you say it, because a lot of people didn't know about it. So it
well,
was
I
kind of
raised the stink. Like that's the
yeah.
thing is like I wasn't
Yeah,
until I started talking about it.
you have to be careful with
Actually,
that stuff because like you're border like to us, we don't see it as pay to win, but to a player coming in,
Yeah,
that definitely
absolutely.
Yeah.
feels like pay
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, yeah, and that was my concern.
Yeah, I think the main problem back then was really just the way it was presented. But I think what it really shows, to sort of wrap it back to the actual topic, is that there is no cohesive way they're making the patch notes. So stuff is gonna fly through all the time. And sort of having made a game myself with patch notes, and we sort of set out on the goal to make the best patch notes ever, right? We wanted to make the league patch notes, which are awesome and have all the numbers and all that stuff. We failed.
Yeah.
It's just really hard because people will change something at like 2 a.m. and they'll just push it, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, I can finally sleep and like take a nap," and
Mm.
then they forget about it. And the only way to ensure that you actually have all changes in there is if everybody writes proper change logs to the platform that you're submitting to,
Well, so
and somebody goes through it and reads them, which is like that never happens.
yeah. So I understand that. I'm sympathetic to that. I'm not ignorant to that. But um for example, with the EXP situation again, um, you know, many people reached out,
Hmm.
gave the information, and made a post about it. And I think it's all about even if it's last minute, even if it's after the fact, having the transparency, explaining the situation, and saying, "Hey, give us your feedback on it," I think is a better approach than just keeping silent about it.
Mm. I agree.
Yeah,
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 no, I totally agree that there are like key points that need to be reiterated on, especially when
And
you're walking
yeah,
the line of like pay to win.
and I get that, like, they've had their, with Crash moving on, they've had their CM issues, but you know you have this game that's already in a weird place, that's already competing in a fairly unsettled genre. And having that transparency, and we're used to it from alpha and closed beta and stuff, but you got to maintain that. Not You don't have to maintain it to the detail that they did before, but you know at least after the fact, address it.
Because I think we're causing the servers to like shut down. They're going haywire right now for me.
Wait, yeah, the podcast is doing that. Yeah, sure. Hope not.
Hmm.
I'm gonna get a fucking
Sure.
copy strike now, and they're gonna.
And I'm
I'm gonna
joking.
get a
That's unlucky.
lawsuit. Okay. No. Yeah.
Servers fucking up because we're discussing stuff about dollars. So, right?
Yeah, that would be a fun topic. I doubt that. I think it's just.
How do you guys feel about the loadouts, by the way? It's something we, at least from
They're
my experience,
great for
haven't really
cosmetics.
Like,
Cosmetic wise, I'm enjoying the game a lot more.
All of my loadout so far is
I
the
think
same
there's
cosmetics.
a lot of functionality that could be improved. I think it's a great starting point, but there's a lot of functionality that could be improved.
I kind of
the
fucked
thing
up
about
like
loadouts.
the perk window. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So the thing about loadouts for me is, um, I like that I can just swap between my builds now. Like that's great. What I don't like is having to pay for a basic feature, and I don't like that I cannot rearrange my loadouts the way I want to arrange them. I don't understand why they're hard coded to be like in a specific position. Like that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Or like
Like,
name them at least, you know?
yeah, and that too. Like, but what
Yeah.
confuses me the most is
Organization
like,
of loadouts is something that gets discussed pretty frequently in partner Discord. I think
well,
that the surprise, surprise that like just kind of loadouts was um, it's a good first iteration. They got it to like what's I forget what it's called, lowest viable product, I think, or something
Minimal
like that.
viable product. Yeah.
Minimum viable product.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that based on Phoenix Labs is just kind of like expansion, right? That a lot of the things that we're seeing are the minimum viable product, and
Yeah.
it's just like it's growing pains, right? Like it's just the company trying to, because in my opinion, overall, Dauntless is very successable,
Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
and because of that, like they have big boots to fill. Like Eodin said it, like it's a genre that is it's the Wild West to them, and I think that they're doing a good job. I think that like as far as loadouts go, to stay on topic, I think that the loadouts are a minimum viable product. I think that they're good. I think that they're good for cosmetics. I don't like where they are located in the UI. I would like to be able to rearrange them. I'd like to rename them.
do you,
Oh,
do you think it was fine for them to, well, I mean, charge money for loadouts? I mean,
Yes.
a lot of
I think it is. I think ultimately it is. And the main reason for that is because there are so many. Like it's not an uncommon practice, is what I think is what I'm trying to say. Like you get a certain amount of unlockable loadouts, and then if you want more, great, you can pay for them. Again, free to play game. You know, you're
Yeah.
going to get it as a basic feature in Monster Hunter because you're paying for the full price tag.
yeah, but usually like free-to-play titles are earning more than full price. I mean,
Depending
all
on
right,
Well,
what
it
they're
game it
depends on
is.
forcing you to
AAA
spend
games
money
and
to
stuff,
Yeah.
play the
but like
game.
Games
over
like
time, you know.
Fortnite will, of course,
mean-
rack in more money
I
than
mean, there's
a.
so many Korean MMOs that will charge you for like an extra action bar, right?
Yeah.
Like there are so
What?
many
Yeah.
games that will charge you for inventory slots. There
Oh,
are
We're not
games that
at the
will charge
level
you
of
for
like a Black Desert Online where
Yeah,
like
but
you
like,
No.
have to pay premium to enjoy the
yeah,
my I just don't see like is it like a surprise though that I guess that's kind of like, are you guys surprised that you need to charge, like that you're being
No.
charged,
I mean,
or
I don't really need
Well,
those extra spots to be honest. I don't know.
I think after they reduced the price, it's a lot more acceptable.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I
Their
definitely
original
think the
pricing
reduction is good.
was ridiculous,
Yeah.
but their current pricing I think is acceptable.
Yeah,
So,
I think
Ravi, because
they-
you were
oh,
sorry,
sorry.
go on.
Go ahead.
All right, Ravi, because you were talking about like rearranging the whole thing, you know, of the loadouts where they are located and stuff. How do you guys
Yeah.
feel about like buffs and stuff? If we could like relocate them,
Okay, I would like
because
to be able to scale my UI, make all the icons
Exactly.
small, like super duper
yeah,
tiny.
but like, who looks up to the like top left corner to look at their buffs? Like what?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you were in my stream when I
Oh yeah,
mentioned
yeah, I
this,
was. Yeah,
Banana,
actually, I was. Yeah.
because I was saying move your eye from a competitive, like, trial standpoint. Moving your eye to the top left corner, top right corner is the
Yeah.
hardest motion that your eyes can make.
Yeah.
And so having like the UI at the bottom, middle, that would be an optimal
Yeah.
way to do it. I think a really easy quality of life thing is make your potion buffs green. Make certain,
Yes.
and then like just changing
Oh
like
yeah, like
slight
different
colors.
colors and oh yeah, like red
Yeah,
for damage
and
buffs
then
and
the
stuff. Yeah.
organization,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like
Totally.
potion buffs are always first, right? Like those are typically like potion buffs move all the way to the left. Your
Yeah.
in and out buffs will, that's the issue is the
Be
way
on-
that the organization of buffs happen.
Oh yeah.
It
Definitely.
gets really scrambled, and then it doesn't help that we have that bug that just like spams 16 buff icons,
yeah.
right? Like,
Well, I also think honestly, I do think that the buff UI should be movable, because
Oh
like
yeah.
for me,
Shit.
I would put it near the center, like
What?
just barely like near near the
Can't see the
bottom
behemoth
of
anymore.
my
yeah,
near
no,
the,
I mean that's like
bottom.
MMO status.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah,
I
like
think a lot of people would
Actually.
like customizable UI.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I would like to, like, my first thing when we're talking about this is I would, because it's funny, the reason that I say this is because that little orange box in the lantern bar tells me that it's not complete. That, like, where your
Oh
little
yeah.
tap, because that's just like a
That's
box
just
and a
stupid.
number. It's like we're not getting any UI, like we're not getting any graphic for that. Um,
Fully
I
released
would
game, by
ask
the way.
Phoenix Labs. I would ask Phoenix Labs if they're like, is this the final UI that we're receiving
Yeah.
in the next year?
I mean, they said it wasn't, right? I would hope it
Yeah,
isn't.
they said they were working on stuff still, and that this is sort of their first step towards making a more finalized UI. There's
Heck,
one more
I'm
thing which I quickly wanted to say about the loadouts, and after this I have to go for dinner, so I'm gonna sort of interrupt you all real quick. Which is the
Yeah,
one thing that I do think the current loadouts are lacking, with the extra slots, is that because builds are so samey, right? We're always running Predator, we're always running the same things. I end up often wanting to just swap the weapon but not the gear. Um, Especially when I'm doing bounties, I just want to swap the weapon. That's all, or for mastery, right? And right now, when I do this, it unslots the cells from my other gear because of the loadouts, which can really hamper my progression if I want to make a quick tweak to my gear. And now I need to figure out what cell was in there again because it's unequipped. I feel that personally slows down sort of small tweaks to builds rather than sort of the big I make a build and I'm done. Because that's what the loadouts are really good at. If you just want to have 5 completely different unique versions of armor and cell combinations, they're fantastic. But if you want to make like a small change, I feel it's a little bit more tricky.
Right.
Well, I mean, I usually
Yeah.
dedicate 2 loadout slots just to trials.
I think that, yeah, I mean, so that, but also I think it's how you structure your builds is what's important. Like, it's hard to go from like a power slot in your weapon to a technique slot in your weapon, but at that point, if you structure your armor in a correct way, you'll have the ability to just be like, oh, I'll just bring Berserker 3, or I'll just socket, +3 overpower, and then I'll have +6 overpower. And like if you structure it right,
Yeah.
so your weapon doesn't fuck with the build too much. To me, like, I actually prefer loadouts because of that. Because when I'm farming, I'll just be like, okay, this is my farming set, and then whatever the element I need to change to, I just do that. And it might not be like the prettiest build in the world, but it's got Berserker 3 or
Right.
Overpower
I mean,
6.
I don't even change my weapon for that. I just if it's Hellion,
life
I'm
of
gonna
a
go with
repeater
the
main. I
Hellion.
never change my build.
Yeah.
My-
Outside
I
of
just
like
change
a
my
rogue
barrel.
plus, like I don't. If I'm fighting a fire behemoth and I have, kill 5 fire or hunt with fire weapons, I'll just bring the fire weapon. And
I
Yeah.
haven't
I mean, the
changed my
DPS loss is so marginal.
I haven't changed my loadout since Berserkers came out.
You see, that's the thing I was talking about. Like, like there should be like you should be
It's just my loadout is
well,
so universal
forced
for everything, so I don't need to
forced to
change.
Yeah, it
change,
depends on your
right? You
weapon
should
of
be
choice
forced to
too. Like
change
chain blades, and like repeaters probably have a pretty easy time with that problem.
Actually, Aether Strikers and Repeaters
Like,
does too.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I definitely can say that as a repeater. I mean, I never change anything but my
Yeah, me
barrel and
too.
my chamber
Well,
sometimes.
and I
and my
mean, like,
prism.
I have 3 hammer builds at the start, and basically they're the 3 hammer builds that I can swap out any version weapon of that. So like I have an Inferno build, and I can swap to any Inferno weapon, and it's like quick resocket cells, and I'm
Yeah,
Wait, what?
I think that the like time, it's significantly less than what it would be if you needed to change your entire gear set. Like, I think
Yeah.
even if that's the argument, I feel like it's still doing the thing that it's supposed to do, which is make it more efficient. So
I think going into your loadout screen, instead of having those small little slot things over there, I think they should reorganize the perk summary and your weapon part. The left side doesn't need to be so freaking big,
yeah,
and
no, I mean I
make you
don't
be able
really
to see
enjoy.
at least like 5 or 6 slots at a time. I really hate the paging part where I have to like roll through pages.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the current UI, while it is better than the previous, I don't think that it's the business. I really don't like it. I don't like the transmog. I don't like the die. I don't like how big everything is.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
the same with the scrolling. Like I
Well,
think
keep
it
in
just has a
mind
lot of
like
flaws.
and I'm slightly afraid of this is like console and Switch
Mobile.
and especially mobile.
Oh,
Like
mobile.
mobile UIs do not make sense on PC at all. And while I get that Dauntless is probably like Phoenix Labs is probably trying to make it a one and done for all, I think for Switch I think console and mobile should all be different UI setups than PC.
Hmm.
Not to hate on them, but like it's just obnoxious on the PC to have like, it's just like when you play any port over, when you can tell immediately that this menu is meant for console, was never really meant for PC. Remnant is like that.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could see more of their concepts, because I mean that's actually like a really good point and something that I haven't even thought of is the crossover of mobile to,
Yeah.
because like I think if it's just console and PC, they could probably do it, right? Like I think that's totally doable. Monster Hunter does a good job of it, with your like loadouts and stuff. The way that it's listed and it's like its own little frame. I think ultimately that's what I would like to see for the die system in general, and loadouts, is that they're their own separate UI screen. Um, and just have a, like in the airship, I think that would be like a really hot thing to add, would be just a button that goes straight to that loadout UI, instead of like going to start or like hitting the loadout button, go to your another button that goes to your saved loadouts. And so it's just like click of a button, pick which one you want, and boom, you're good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think all your loadouts should be a lot more clickable. Like I should be able to go in, click on it, and switch to it versus paging through to try and find
Yeah.
my loadouts. Because I have all my
Yeah.
trial loadouts like at the end, because I know, hey, when I'm doing trials, I'm going to commit to doing trials for a couple of hours. So I'm going to page over to my 7th and 8th slot and just sit.
And with that comes like naming your loadouts, because right now
Oh,
you're
yeah.
just like, you just kind of like, I don't
You
know,
gotta guess or change the
see
mod.
by, yeah, that's the problem. Naming them would be like, I mean, and I think it wouldn't be that hard for them to change that, to name your loadouts.
I just want to bring up a question on generally how intuitive do you think a lot of these systems are? I was playing with some friends over the weekend that had last played near the beginning of open beta or like the end of closed beta, and they said that they still have the same problems they had before, less so the bugs and stuff, although that's still present, is with just generally the combat and other elements just being unintuitive, of like I'm expecting that when I do this attack I'm gonna get like responsive kind of feedback, but they're not kind of getting that.
Can
Oh, I
you
think
go
some
into
of that's
specifics?
server reg.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's like some
But I
There-
think
that's something. But I mean, like, I literally just hung out with my friends yesterday, and we did like a 4 stack, like in the same room, like hunt sesh, and it was a blast. And I was talking with them. I was like, so what do you guys think of like the new bounty system? And they loved it. But the things that we talked about for the bounty system. Sorry to kind of backtrack onto the bounty system. Um, like they love the artwork of the cards, they like all the animations, they like all that stuff, and I think that like the bounty system has good feedback, right? Like I think that they've improved from alpha, like those things, and to touch on this even more, I think that when you come from a game, like say you played an alpha and then you never played, and so you had a good idea what alpha was like, and then you come back to the game, you're just like, I think that's like the worst possible experience a player can have, right? Like rejoining a game when it's already been going for so long is pretty unfavorable for them. So I take that with like a grain of salt, but at the same time, it shouldn't be that way. Like it should be the feedback should be.
Yeah, I still feel that the game lacks in informing the player, and especially with, I mean, again, I'm gonna harp on this because this is my biggest issue with the game overall is core competencies, stamina management, learning tells, and making cohesive builds. I think those three things are not really taught to the player at all, and then a lot of players get to like heroic plus get stuck because the game has allowed them to more or less ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting trying to explain this stuff to him. Like, crap. I'm blanking on a specific example, but I'm like, so if you want to like do a lot of damage with the axe, you have to like, you're super immobile, super slow. But I mean, even then, I mean, this is just more of a balance thing. It's like you're still not even going to keep up with like chain blades or something like that. So just keep that in mind. And it's like, but that's unintuitive. I would expect the harder weapon to be better or stuff like that. And other stuff like with the bounty system. I mean, not bounties. I wish I had written this stuff down. But like, let's say bots,
so like
mantras.
here's the thing. I think that is a I don't believe in that. I don't share that same sentiment. Like just because something is harder doesn't mean it needs to be better, in my opinion. Like look at Insect Glaive, right? Like Insect Glaive is a very hard weapon and it comes nowhere close to like Charge Blade or Great Sword. And maybe in some fights it might, and in some cases Dauntless has that same thing where it's like, oh, Skarn gets absolutely shit on by the hammer, but Sword is really good against Koshai, right? I think it's fine to have those things. I don't think that difficulty necessarily means you get the most payout. You could go by classes in MMOs. Feral Druid right now in World of Warcraft is totally lackluster, very hard to play, very mechanically intense. They are nowhere near the top of DPS.
Okay.
I think that's a mindset thing.
So here's, because I come from a similar background. Where would you see the balance being?
I don't think that I'm of the very strong opinion that balance is overrated. There obviously needs to be a certain level, like when controlling power creep. That's what's important. And we're in a state where damage is so heavily outclassing everything else in the game that everything else is boring. In my opinion, damage is the most boring form of gameplay that you can add to our builds or in any game. I think what needs to be, and then on the flip side, we have so much survivability. We touched on this at the very beginning of the podcast when I joined, at least. We have so much survivability that things like escalation don't matter. Like it could be 10 behemoths, it could be 20 behemoths.
Yep.
We have so much life steal and we have Iceborne, we have life drain tonics, we have
Like,
Koshai Lantern.
And even without
have,
Iceborne, like you still have like enough.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's ultimately what I'm saying is like on the flip side of the spectrum, none of that matters, right? And so like how do you make that matter? It's lower in my opinion. This is we're getting into my opinion. Team play and weapon prowess. This is where difficulty gets rewarded. like Predator was saying. Um, if you have weapons that are able to heal, it might take away from the damage, but then suddenly that weapon is sought after. It has its own moments. It doesn't need to be like this big hit, you know, getting that Aether Slam off. If a supportive spell feels like you're Aether Slamming when things are hitting the fan, that creates a feel good moment for that player, and it justifies their action of bringing that weapon.
Yeah,
I
but
think
like,
having I always laugh whenever they say like everything is slay, like we really want you to slay their way, or you know, slay your way, and it's just like everybody's the same. Everybody is
Yeah.
the same.
but then,
Everybody tries to deal damage.
Well, then
or
here's my question to you. Like,
yeah,
so I think there's a huge power creep issue with the game, and like you said, cells, and there's a couple ways to tackle it. Um,
I
going
I
on
just
what you're
hate
saying,
that.
like
Mm,
go evening out the
yeah.
weapons, I think is a way to go about it, but then you have to give emphasis to the type of weapon and how it's played. And I think if they can't deliver on that, you're going to
I
see
think
what you're seeing
balancing
right now,
weapon
where you
is,
have
it's like fighting game characters. You're never like, there's always going to be a top, like, and everybody, even if it's a 0.1%, there's going to be the people that flock to that weapon because and you know what's shitty is it's the player bases that like, it's the player base's fault for this. It it,
Hmm.
it could be a 0.1% difference, and Hammer would still be flocked to, and people would still be calling for buffs on their 0.1% less damage weapon.
Hmm.
And that's
Well,
the issue that
It's a little
that's where
different.
my
well, I feel it's
Well-
different because like you have strikers and chain blades right now. Like chain blades, if played at the top level, is pretty on par with hammer. I mean,
I
if you
disagree
if you
heavily.
count if you count the amount of evasiveness that chain blades have and the DPS that they can actually output,
Yeah,
it's a lot less it's way less harder to play the chain blades efficiently than it is to play the hammer efficiently for the same play.
I agree. I agree I guess it depends on the player, right? But the what
I'm saying in the
my main
hands
thing
of
about the
similar
chainless.
skilled players.
No, for sure. And here's the thing. I think that there are two, like, think of two separate versions of chain blades. There's Hellion chain blades, and then there's all the other chain blades. Like, Hellion chain blades blow
nobody
everything out of the water.
uses.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
like
I think that that's an
Hellion
issue
stuff is
within itself.
so like Hellion stuff in general just needs
Well,
to.
that
I
again
feel like
goes to
chain blades
power
are very
creep.
balanced.
Hmm.
I think they
I
would
think
be if, but I
take out Hellion
again
weapons from
like
the game, and you have a balanced weapon, in my opinion. I feel like sword and chain blades fall right next to each other. Like when they buff sword, even though it was like the slightest thing, I was like, why? Even though it's weak, like, and that's just me kind of backing this balance is overrated thing. Like, I just love the weapon, and I think ultimately that's what, whether you're a top tier player or whether you're an everyday player, the important thing is that your weapon feels fun to play without any hindrances, right? Like, if you try to day one a warp hike, it's gonna feel like shit, and
well,
Yeah,
that's
I
like,
feel bad for pike users.
it's the same thing with like hammer and axe until you know like the core aspects of the game and like how to emphasize the better parts of that weapon.
to play it
It's a
proficiently,
chore.
sure,
It's a
but
chore to
everybody.
play. Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I think that the axe and the hammer suffer from something that I don't think should exist from the game, and that's attack speed. I
Yeah.
think the
What do you
heavier weapons.
mean?
Actually, personally, I feel like I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like Aether Slam kind of ruined the hammer, in my opinion. It ruined like everything about the hammer.
It got rid
All
of the
the
diversity of combos.
inline reloading, priming,
Well,
all that stuff goes out the window.
inline
That was
reloading
Out
never.
the
was
window, right?
never there to begin with. I mean,
Well,
once you know how to play it.
yes, but I personally think like when it comes to weapon, like designing a weapon and its move sets and stuff like that, you shouldn't have a move that invalidates every like
Oh, I agree.
Every
parts of
other
the
weapon. Yeah.
kits. Yeah, it invalidates all other combos and invalidates all other parts of the weapons kit. Just you don't have to think about it. All you have to do is like, oh, I just fucking spam
I have
repeating
one goal and
uppercuts
only
as,
one goal,
as
and I know
fast
how
as
to
I
achieve
can
it.
and Aether Slam. Yeah, that's pretty much why it is, and that's why hammers are like, everybody's memeing on hammers and calling them unga bunga because reasons, right?
Well, I mean,
They're
you
So,
could
they're
say
hard
the
type.
same thing about
That's.
strikers. The only
I mean,
difference with strikers is you have to diversify your attacks simply because of the mantra. But and
but that
this
won't
is my
that
issue
won't go
with
for every weapon, which is gonna be top DPS for the game.
Yeah, same with
yes.
Chainblades. Same
But
with
my issue right now is that
That's
it
just
seems that
people.
like combat is in a flux right now with weapon balance, where they want to even everything out and like make top end DPS more even across all weapons, which is fine as long as there's an emphasis on like, why would I bring a hammer over a chain blade? Why would I bring strikers over a hammer? Am I having issues dodging with a slower weapon? Then yeah, I'll bring the faster weapon. I might not have the exact same top end DPS, but I can play it professionally, and as Revy said, have fun with it. Obviously we want people to have fun with the game, but we are getting to a point, especially right now in the game, where why bring a slow weapon when there's a faster variant that's a lot better? Why bring sword when chain blades is just better? Why bring hammer when strikers it's just better? And you invalidate a whole weapon class, and that's not so much balance. That's
Where does
yeah.
that bug you
bad
though?
implementation.
Is it trials like exclusively?
It's not
Like
trials.
that
Actually, when me and Predhelt were competing in exploits tournaments,
Okay.
that's where I noticed it more. I
Right.
noticed it more in Heroic Plus and Heroic speedruns because, so like, say you mess up with Hammer, you miss that Aether Slam,
Yeah.
you're punished. You're punished pretty hard.
Right.
If you're a chain blades and you miss a Q, it's like whatever. I can just spacebar back into it and keep up similar DPS. And if you look back through those tournaments, Captain Maelstrom, a bunch of people that played chain blades. I mean, not until we got to a point where everybody knew exactly the fights, knew exactly how to play, did we actually see a lot more hammer being used. But overall, most of the tournament, people were going to chain blades because if you messed up, if you had that small mess up, it wasn't as significant. And the same thing with strikers. It's not as significant if you miss one mantra. You can just go in and build it back up and be right back in that. You miss an Aether Slam or you miss like a level 3 charge on an axe, it's a pretty significant whiff and it's a pretty significant loss to DPS. And I
Yeah,
feel
you can
that
miss a clap too, though. Like
I
you
think
can miss a clap pretty easily.
overall, I think it's I don't know. It feels
I
pretty weird that
I
we're
think
going
I
for
think it's
times
like
in
still
this
a
game.
competitive aspect.
but yeah,
Like
when it comes to trials, like I'm fine with some trial weeks favoring a weapon over another weapon. That's fine. That's gonna happen,
I
But
think
I'm not okay with strikers just being an outright better choice than hammer
no, I
when
totally agree.
it's just top end DPS is the separator. Top end DPS shouldn't be the separator.
I think that in both cases, like whether it's the tournament or it's trials, like those things, to me they take a backseat because
Well,
I think that the the important thing is that each weapon feels good to play and it's fun. But I do agree that if it's like why bring a weapon?
yeah.
There
So
should be
And I mean
enough of
Pike
a
is
decide.
horribly in that situation right
Well, I see,
like
and that's like that's something that I don't actually agree with because it's something that it has a shot. Like both of their specials are very unique, and they can be very powerful tools. They're just not right now, and I don't know if that's because the lack of it's either the state of the player base where everybody that you are playing with, like a pike can be really strong in a group that has no idea what they're doing. They don't know how to boop. They know that boops are possible, but they don't know how to flawlessly boop. And so it's just like, oh, I got this shot. And it's like, you could be a hammer, but they like the war pike, right?
now. Well,
Like
see, the end point of balance, I don't think should be focused on those scenarios. I think it should be focused more on it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned with the competitive. Like with trials, I'm not saying balance everything off of trials, but there should be a balance between what is efficient in heroic plus and what is efficient in trials, and then that should stream down. Like what you're saying is a scenario that to an average player is perfectly fine. Like you're going to see that in heroic, you're going to see that in heroic plus. You're
I
not
feel like
gonna
that's
see it
what
in
we need to
trials.
discuss, though. Like that's.
You know,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
a big point for me is like, without like, if we're talking about like normal patrols and hunts, you know, I don't really see the point that they're like telling you how long it took you to fight.
Right.
I don't know.
That's
It's
a good
just
point.
like, why do we need this in
I think
in Dauntless?
I think everything
It's
heroic
just
plus and below is
it's
just
just dumb.
like is
It's just
play.
dumb,
I
you know?
think yeah,
Because
I think
that
I think
like
it's playing the
hugely
game.
affects your gameplay. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think heroic plus and below is just to both of what your guys are saying is just playing the game. So it's hard for me to think that I expect speedruns to not be totally balanced at heroic and heroic plus. But if you're going to add like survival, if you're going to add, I think trials is the start of what is going to become in game for Dauntless. It's going to be multiple modes, different modes that you can play with. Each week is going to have like a different, emphasis on a weapon. I'm a hammer main. One week hammer might not be the best. I'm not going to be able to compete for top 5.
Yeah.
That's fine. I can miss 1 week of not being top 5 if I don't want to switch over to strikers or, whatnot. But, I could go to the survival mode that week, if they do a leaderboard at all for it or anything like that. Hey, I can get some impressive time for my YouTube channel or for content creation with Hammer that week. And
Yeah,
that's
I know.
fine. I think that's fine. But I never think that a faster weapon with less risk, and I mean, we can discuss attack speed playing into that, but I don't think lesser risk weapons. I don't think Dauntless. I don't think Phoenix Labs should step any further away from risk versus reward balancing.
All right, but
until they
fair.
address power creep, until they address how they're going to handle power creep in their game and how they're going to handle what is currently in their game. I don't think they should feather away from risk versus reward balancing.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think the
like a
game's in a
weapon
position
comes
to do
out
it.
once a year, right? Like and it's quite clear that strikers are very strong in getting nerfed. But ultimately, what I wanted to touch on, Eoden, is that the leaderboards and like are just, to me, at top tier levels of play, I think it's a huge flaw that weapons were not incorporated within their own weapon subcategory.
especially for solo.
Right.
I don't think any veteran player will argue.
Yeah,
with
I
that.
think that it's really hard to argue like top tier balance when what we have to play in like our playground for top tier gameplay is so just like it's not catered to us. Like it's for us, but it's not tailored specifically for us. And that was something I really tried to fight for, was and that just tells me that like trials is something that they'll probably revisit. And so when it comes to like top tier balancing and making sure all the weapons are performing to satisfactory levels, I just feel like it's hard to argue it, right? Like it's an issue, but it's just like it's something that's so obviously going to change. So it's like hard to really
I see that.
it's going.
My thing is like, I think everybody who was hyped for trials expected the first month, 2 months, 3 months to be more or less, pardon my French, a shit show. Like, I was not expecting things to be balanced. I was not expecting hackers to be handled. And I think they've done an overall good job of like progressively legitimizing and regulating trials. However, I think there's still like a lot of things that they need to figure out and they need to do. And honestly, my focus for trials is to eventually get to a point where it can be taken seriously.
Yeah, no,
I would
for
like it to be
100%.
something that could be
So
taken
you
seriously.
say need. need to be taken seriously. I personally feel with the state of the leaderboard and that the way that everything is kind of structured and how volatile it is and how and how small the player base interacting with the trials are, like especially Dauntless trials. I imagine that it's just not a priority, right? Like there's no way it can be. There's such a like little amount of people interacting with that content. And that's how it's always going to be. And so I
and I
feel like
get
I think trials are always going to be kind of like that back burner thing. They'll always revisit it and bring it back.
the
But I
ugly
think we're
baby.
going to be waiting longer. That's just kind of how I that's how I
Well,
feel.
and here's my thing with that is, you know, right now for me personally, I feel other than getting a sub 3 a week, since I've already gotten top 5 multiple weeks and stuff, and maybe dabbling in solos, there's really not a reason to do it anymore for me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really care for the cosmetics. I would like the cosmetics, but the fact that every top 100 player can get those cosmetics, it really drowns any reason for me to put forth the effort for it. I think there's small little tuning that they could do to trials now rather than later that would significantly make it more of a long-term game mode until they can revisit it. And that's how people place on the leaderboard. So like getting rid of people who swap out one person and take up another spot on the leaderboard, or you know, I mean that's mainly to groups. Making solo weapon based, you know, keep it top 5, but you know, make it individual weapon leaderboards for solos, and then giving some incentive. You don't have to give the rewards now. Cosmetics take time, but some incentive to continuously hit top 5.
What bugs? Oh, go
Also,
on.
quick like,
Yeah.
or so we should like move on with the patch notes after that. But like, how do you feel like trials only lasting 1 week?
I think it's good and
Mm.
bad.
And
I
they're
think it's a
being
little bit too like it's going too fast. I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I
think
just
the
don't.
stress. I think the stress of having it weekly is really
Yeah.
intense on the players, like
Oh yeah.
interacting with it every week. It's from a content creation standpoint, once a week is great. From
I mean, but it's not
a
really
everyday
content.
what?
It's not really like new content. It's just like behemoths we fought.
Well, some
I
of the
mean,
modifiers are.
I'm
yeah.
talking about like as someone who puts up
People want
videos
to
on
know how
YouTube.
to do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, people just want to know how to do it or what your strats are. And so for a content creator, it's pretty
Oh yeah,
nice.
for
Because
Exactly.
every
oh,
week,
I thought you were like talking about content in game. All right. Sorry.
Yeah,
oh no,
no,
content creators.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, sorry. From my unique perspective, I think once a week is fine.
Yeah, sure.
I could get a sub 3 and upload that, and but the I think that the stress that it puts on the player that wants to interact with that content is very high.
Yeah.
It also
No,
to the point that it could potentially tax your wallet, right? Like buying potions or something.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to briefly say, like, what the one of the more frustrating aspects about this for me is that most of this we all knew was going to be a problem before it even came out, and it's still a problem. Like the leaderboard is not being split, about the groups. Just like we're like, oh wait, so you can get multiple times on the leaderboards on the groups? That's a problem.
They
Like,
knew. They
yeah,
actively knew. It was a conscious choice to not make them that way. Again, and I think that ties back to perhaps minimum viable product.
yeah, and
And it just takes that revisiting.
And what makes it a problem is that these rewards are less valuable over time because more people have access to them as time goes on. So that means that by the time they get around to fixing it, nobody cares anymore.
I
So
mean, yes, but I mean, you're still. I think that top 100 is still like it's such a minor part of the player base. How many people do you see running around with that gear, right?
Yeah,
You see people with the blue crown all the time, and that's about it, right?
I'm seeing more and more golds over time. Like I'll be in Ramsgate and I'm like, oh hey, every like 3 or 4 sessions instead of
mean,
1 in 20.
I know like certain streamers who will carry people
Yeah.
for like for like the
I
views and all
personally,
that.
I personally don't think
So-
it's okay that people carry, people into top 100. I think
Well,
it's something that players should earn, but it is content
integrity
in
be
a
damned when
yeah
there's content to get, right? Yeah.
Mm.
yeah.
So
Yeah, well, it's not
I
really
can't
their
blame
fault
them
that
for it,
it's carryable. So
yeah.
it,
I we could spend a whole day on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
All right. Let's move on.
All right,
Yeah, let's move
go.
on and iron some stuff out.
let's go.
all right. How about talking about how to encourage diversity in the game in terms of builds and weapons and perks and like all that other stuff.
Oh, you mean pertaining
Yeah.
to like 1.0 and like strikers, stuff like that? Like, well, can I just like, because that seems like a very broad question that like doesn't really pertain specifically to 1.0.
I think it's power creep. I think it's the diversity in mechanics in a fight, and I just don't think the game is there to really. People are always going to flock to the most efficient thing because there's not enough challenge. In my opinion, there's not enough
Or
challenge
not
to make
enough
diversity.
counters.
Well, it's
Well, from my
path of least-
perspective-
it's always
There's
going to be path of least
mechanics.
resistance.
From
and
my
it's
pers-
also going to
oh,
be,
go on.
and it's also, I think it ties into making those mechanics other than damage more interesting.
True.
Like, yeah, you don't need to like kill efficiently to have fun and have weapon diversity. It just needs to feel like they're actually contributing, which in most cases you're not.
Yeah.
With like a Skarn weapon, right? Like with those like defensive style builds, and but even though they work too well. Like they work too well, but even if you don't need them, and
Yeah.
that's something that needs to be addressed.
I think we have to go back to the days of like Evasive Fury and even Predator, where there's a mechanic that you have to learn to efficiently use that, and it doesn't always have to be damage related. So like, nail a perfect dodge and your next 5 seconds get 50% increased healing, and then you decide to chuck a pot. But there needs to be some type of mechanic that a player needs to utilize in order to get the most out of those bonuses. Not just
The way-
straight up, hey, he got enraged, now I have 40% increased damage.
The way that I see it is that we have a big issue right now with the damage buffs being too strong in terms of you can have your entire kit be just purely dedicated to increasing your damage, and they're all very strong. They're like overpowered 70%. You've raged 25% just passively. So
yeah,
it's just there are other tools that if the fights were longer, they were harder, you got rewarded the same amount for taking a little bit. Like what I mean by rewarded the same amount is if you take like just a full power build and you take a build that just has like general survivability and stuff like that, the person that's getting the faster clears is going to be progressing through the content much faster than the person that's bringing regular gear. Is like the time you put in to just use like a fun build, you get way less out of it. It just feels like, I don't know.
Well, then
feel like
here's a question: like, how?
I don't
If
know.
you could describe what kind of fun builds or like what kind of contributing factor you would want to see out of those reworks. I think that's the issue. Is like defensive. I feel like defensive and mobility cells are really just there to compensate for things that players either haven't learned or haven't mastered yet.
I think they're necessary in
is-
certain games where the content is longer than 30 seconds at optimal speeds, where you actually need healing in order to
Oh yeah,
survive, because you're bound to take damage enough
Yeah.
that your health is going to run out without it. Like,
like
there's no way to avoid it.
Revi, you were
Realistically.
like earlier you were talking about like some, I don't know, like a healing weapon or something, you know?
Yeah,
If they're
yeah,
like if they're if
yeah, I'd
they're
be happy to touch on that.
Here.
I want to avoid like talking over everyone because I like already we're just like, oh yeah, let's move on to 1.0, and then we're totally not talking about
Now we're
1.0.
back on balance again. We're
Yeah,
back on
but, like,
balance again.
could it just if they're like adding something like that, they would have like to rework all the behemoths, right? All their attacks, how much damage they're doing, because
No,
if the
not
behemoths,
necessarily.
No,
I mean, if the behemoth's still gonna die like in 1 minute, then
If
the
you
healer
play-
would have nothing to
well,
do.
that's the
You know?
issue, and
Right.
we've kind of touched on this like in various points of this podcast. A lot of it ties back, like Predelt is saying, like a lot of it goes back to damage, which ties to the cell system,
yeah,
right? The
for
cell system has huge
Which-
emphasis on damage.
Also, the
And
Which is
damage
tied to
the
and
power
before
level.
that, we
behemoths
were
do.
saying like, oh, maybe the cell system is like not even going to exist next. Like, I think that we have like, I think we're outgrowing the cell system,
Yeah.
and so we're at this like very elongated evolving point for Dauntless, where I think like everything is going like I don't want to say everything, but I think things will start falling into place as Phoenix Labs gets over these growing
Technical
pains.
hurdles like
Yeah,
console
yeah.
resolution. Stuff like that.
I think that they're solving a lot of problems that need to be done before big changes are made to balance and these other issues. And I think that Aether Strikers are a testament to like what a weapon can be in feeling, because you can play the Aether Strikers without any cells and they feel great.
Yeah, they're very potent in terms
And
of like
and that's why I think Aether Strikers are like a really successful weapon, because previously they implemented the war pike, and the war pike is just it has had issues. Like it's been really fun, like there's been moments where the war pike is, oh, this is the heyday of the war pike. Next patch it's trash, next patch it's even worse, next patch it kind of gets fixed. It's just like they know how to create fun things, and and that's the important thing, and that's why I haven't like completely lost faith in
Right.
Dauntless in general. But I think a lot of it ties back to making cells, if they're going to keep cells, making them more interesting. Banana mentioned like the
Make
healing weapon,
the
like
useless
like
ones
if a
useful.
weapon wanted like pure lantern charge, like using Aetherborn made it so you healed everybody, and like you got in, and you could add mechanics around the vent, like you can make Aetherborn really strong. That's how you dealt more damage. That's how you amplified your stuff. I mean, maybe something more interesting than just like holding E on a crack, but but like a weapon that utilizes cells in a different way, right?
Yep.
To either increase damage or make something more interesting. I think that's something that Phoenix Labs wouldn't overlook, and I think that that's the important part.
I think sorry, Blocks, real quick, just well, just real quick, so I can rest easy on this topic, is that like the reason why I find that the cells being a big issue is that if I was saying, yeah, you can do way more damage with just straight power cells, but like if you like did the math like I have in the past, it's really sad because you're doing at least 4 to 5 times more damage than somebody without that, which makes one you're basically dealing as much damage as the rest of your team, if or more, if just by having different cells, and that just doesn't that doesn't seem like a very friendly environment. Like if you're gonna go and the power, it's just so much power. It's too much power.
As I said, like moving forward, like I want to, like, they don't have to touch the current behemoths. In my opinion, I want to see them move forward and make behemoths and encounters that encourage the usage of defensive perks, the usage of mobility perks, and
Yeah.
like give use to them, and like have like the need for shield builds, healing builds, support builds, whatever builds you can come up with. Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
But then
I
you're
think
talking
make
about
those.
fights where you like literally can't dodge.
I
Well,
think
no,
I
as
think
in
there's
like the fights are just so long and there's so many hazards that you're gonna get hit. You have to decide which hits to like what
Yeah,
to
I mean,
take hits
I've
from. You know what I mean?
I've done like 27-minute hunts recruit gear where you can't get hit. So
Yeah. That's what I mean. Is that it's like in the state right now where you're
And
only fighting one behemoth and you know what attacks it has because it only has like 7 or 8 different things it could do total.
Yeah.
Only 2 or 3 things you can be doing at a time. You can easily tell, like, just from experience. Okay, I know what's coming. I can dodge it. It's like there's not a whole lot going on at once
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
terms of the fight.
Have you played Monster Hunter, Banana?
No.
Okay. Well, think of like a behemoth that had like constant life drain, right? Like you
Oh,
just
all right, all
yeah,
right.
that's something I was thinking
like
of
what if there
actually.
was something that required a little bit like a
So like a
modifier that was just
modifier.
like the
Yeah. All right.
arena
So
is draining your life over time.
all right, all right, all right.
Yeah, that would be
So
something nice,
like those are raid mechanics that would
Yeah.
and I was thinking of
Then that would
Valhazak
make
for those
sense
that
again.
have played.
I was just like a
Uh,
little confused there.
yeah, I mean there are mechanics and modifiers that they could add to the game to make them more taxing.
Yeah.
And we kind of have like a pseudo version of those, like getting shocked and getting frozen, getting molten, and you need molten or fireproof. Like we have these like very basic versions of those things. I think we'd like
Yeah.
to see more raid style mechanics, soak mechanics. 2 people need to be standing in this, or like I guess it would need to be tailored to like a solo fight. So soaking isn't really a viable option.
well
But
in some type of an interactable where you have to stop DPS and go and do something in
and
order
here's
to
the thing,
progress.
and this was something I wanted to touch on. Just I feel so fucking bad because
It's all right.
like
It's all right.
we are because we talked about raid mechanics, right? And how we want to see more, and it's like they tried, right? Like Stormclaw has a little ball that you can punch back. They have Nezaga pylons. They have like Boreas armor was a shitty iteration, but like I mean it's still like a raid style mechanic. And the issue is like if Boreas created something and you could just like break it and then its armor broke, I think it would have been fine. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
just need a DPS, like
Some kind of ice
you need a
pillar that you
The
had
problem, the problem with like
yeah.
pylons and stuff is that we can easily ignore them right now. That's like the biggest
Yeah,
issue.
but most players can't. Like that's like the reward of being on farm, right? Like
that's
Yeah.
that's the
it's not
counterplay. So that's what I'm saying is like when they create these mechanics, there has to be some type of counterplay.
Yeah.
Oh, the counterplay would be making a build that suits the fight. Yeah.
Well, no, like
Yeah,
I-
that's
like with
what.
pylons, it's using the body to body block. That's part of the counterplay.
well, you can hit the orbs back, and in Alpha you
That
were
too.
able to like actually destroy them with hitting the ball back, but I don't think you can do that anymore. Maybe
Yeah, it's just
I've
like little
tried it a
damage.
long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like, playing baseball is like a fun mechanic if you choose to do it. It's not like I get where Banana's coming from, but
Yeah.
it's still in the fight. It
Right.
exists.
Yeah,
You can
that's
do
that's that's just maybe me because I'm like not used to it to
it.
use it that way.
Booping. I feel like booping gets rewarded like a lot. Like I think you get way too much out of it, and that's like another sell. Like a lot of these issues that we're discussing all interlock. And
Yeah.
it creates like a compounding problem, and that's why they feel so severe, and that's why we're so passionate about them. Like
Yeah.
we feel it all at the same time every time it happens, right?
Yeah.
Well, we
So
feel it every time we step into a hunt, and that's the thing. Is like
that's all we
for a
have to
new
do.
player, it's like, hey, I'm experiencing this, but it quickly turns into, oh well, I have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been dealing with it for the most amount of time, right? Like
Yeah,
we've been
3 years
experienced.
for some of us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Specifically for the Tempest-born fight, yeah. What does he have? Like 3 boopable attacks? It's crazy. It's like 4 or 5. You can throw
Yeah.
the Orbs back at
Yeah,
him.
the fence, the normal thing, the teleport or like the blink out of existence, and then
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot. I was surprised when Koshai had two.
The whole AoE that he has now with the shock, it just feels weird, and I can't like. I mean, I don't know. It's just like you wait and it goes away, which I guess is okay, but there's no like counterplay to the. You know what I mean? It's just
I
avoid
think
that
don't
spot.
stand in bad. I mean, don't stand in bad is like a very. I think it's okay to have. I don't like how
Yeah,
it's on the fences. I think the fences should be like their own thing, and it shouldn't be.
yeah.
It feels tacked on. It's just
I
like,
think that's
oh,
where my
by the way,
issue
the
comes in.
pylons. Yeah. Like creating pools that are visible. I think the visibility of the pools are bad, and I think that the fence is bad. Or like having the pools around the pylons of the fence. It
I
just
think
feels like
if they reduce the radius, I think there could be some counterplay because there are weapons that would be able to poke them like Pike and X without getting
yeah.
close enough. Like you'd be able to deal damage, but the like strikers and stuff would have a problem because you have to get close to deal the damage. Like that, I think stuff like that could work. It's just right now it's
Yeah,
like
maybe the
no.
radius is too large. I mean, and they could have varying radiuses as well. Like, why doesn't the slam have a big one and the pylons have a small one? I don't. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that would be a good like at least temporary solution. Um, it's whether or not they iterate it.
Yeah.
Quick question
Uh-huh.
about in the patch notes. They're saying like there's a Twin Suns mastery, right? I just got them because I don't know. I want to have everything on max
Yeah,
again.
there's a
You
Twin
know?
Suns mastery now.
Yeah.
I have
But
it
where?
Oh, yep.
prestiged already.
It says undiscovered for me because I don't have them.
Yep, me neither.
Wait, I mean, I have them, but where's the mastery? Do you have to buy
It's
them?
It's in the mastery cards.
it's in the master card for repeaters.
Uh, uh, oh, holy shit! Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I thought
There you go.
I
Okay.
thought it was like a whole new. Oh, all right.
No.
No,
Okay,
it's still
let's quickly run over the patch notes so we can continue the everlasting conversation
so
about
we can bring it to an end.
game
Yeah.
changing meta.
Balance.
Yeah. So probably there's not a lot we really need to go to. I think quality of life, normal ones, and then the balance changes are the most important ones for all of us, right? You don't need to go over that they
Well,
polished the shrouds nearsighted VFX, right?
I
Yeah, I mean, I
like
think for the sake of this podcast, just having structure, I mean, I think what we've already covered, is like more than sufficient. New weapons, the bounty
Oh, yeah,
system,
for
new
sure.
behemoth, like the key points. Like, I honestly, unless there's like specific balance changes, the
Well,
podcast is
hammer.
still on
they
point,
changed hammer, chain
right?
blade,
My
swords,
poor
and
hammer.
war pike.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
Well,
those things are worth covering, but it's like we've been talking about balance for the past couple hours.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
personally, I think this is a good cast. Yeah,
So
So you
covering
can
patch
probably
notes
start
is
wrapping
like,
it up
I
soon.
yeah, I
I think
think
most of us want to go
I've
eat.
enjoyed my
yeah,
time,
most of us want to
Yeah,
go eat, to be
no
honest.
worries.
but
So,
like,
want to wrap it up here? Everyone good? Everyone,
I mean,
Are there
everyone got
any
everything
specific
off their
you.
patch notes
chest?
like that we thought were particularly worth mentioning that we haven't already? I mean,
Nah, not really.
I just wish there was, anything on Axe. Just still, most weapons at this point have just bread and butter combos. It's
mean,
too
I
bad
think
Axe has no fit
that was
into
pretty
any play
disappointing.
style.
Nothing
Axe
on
is just too
Axe,
much.
nothing on Warpike.
Repeaters.
No 1.0 patch.
Well, Warpike got buffed, but nothing on repeaters or Axe.
Oh.
No.
Yeah, Warpike got a very substantial buff, substantial nerf on the hammer. Sword got about I would say probably like a 10% across the board, which seems not. I mean, it is substantial, but 10% for the sword is still like under a lot of other weapons.
Mm.
I think the main thing to know about the sword is just the new stuff. Like the big thing for the sword for me is all the fun stuff and all the great stuff for the sword is in the trial shop. And
Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
that's something
That's
that
for sure.
that ties back to just make the weapons feel good before any of that happens. Um, everything
Yeah.
like I'm in agreement. Like Axe needs help. Warpike still needs help. need
Sword
to
needs a
consider
kind of
like
help.
Hellion chain blades and stuff.
I was going back through Axe bugs, seeing if they fixed any, because they said there were like hundreds of bug fixes, and if they just made it so that attack speed affected the woodchopper finish, then that would be huge in and of itself. That would increase its like viability. But that, and then just most of the bugs are still there on Axe, so they just need to, I don't know, they need to give some love to these weapons a little
Yeah.
bit more, because everything's
Yep.
there. It's just nothing feels great. Nothing feels like you, I don't know, no regrets in a sense.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Well,
If we're all okay with wherever we're gonna end now, we can do it now. If everyone wants to go and have food, I guess. If there,
well,
Fine.
I
if you
mean,
have something on your chest, get it off it now.
oh,
Striker nerf win.
I mean,
Soon.
we're
Yeah, I
probably
mean,
talking
I think the
like,
only thing I want to really say is like I think that this cast was really fun. It was cool to like actually sit down and discuss what I guess voice to voice.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
with people
That's
that
way more better.
have been vocal and are passionate about the game. I would like
I'm-
to come back, whenever I'm available.
You're
And
welcome to.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was really fun.
Thanks
Hopefully,
for joining.
hopefully I know I talked over a few people, and I apologize for that. So
Well, that
It's gonna
happens.
happen with 5
It's
and
gonna
6 people.
the maximum
Actually, one
people
more
we can have in here are
thing-
12 people. So
What are you
one more
saying,
thing I'd
Lucian? You
like
keep
to
getting cut off.
ask.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've been getting cut off this entire podcast, but it's whatever.
You have
Yeah, one more thing I wanted to ask Revi, but
sure.
like not really related to the game, but so I wanted to talk about like, well, partnership with the game and all that.
Yeah.
I feel like I personally feel like, well, I don't know like about you guys, but I feel like I've been streaming the game for a long time, like over a year already, and I
Yep.
do it every single day, 6 hours a day, even longer sometimes. And well, I don't know, like I feel like their partnership program, like right now, it feels
shitty.
well, yeah.
What do
Yeah,
you even get
Let
from
me
that?
let me
Like,
let me say it for you.
Less-
Don't
I mean,
worry. I don't
I would
care.
never get it because I'm like just talking shit about them all the time.
Yeah,
But
I think, Lucian, that you're just in that predicament right now, that you unfortunately started streaming really late in when they changed the program.
Well, if you
Mm,
guys want my opinion on it, it kind of gets in between, both sides. So like Big Banana, I critique
we would never
Phoenix
get
Labs
that
sometimes
for sure.
more vocally than
Yeah.
usual, and as many of you know, I've been called out specifically by Crash a couple of times.
Just a couple.
I think they understand, at least the original crew understands where I'm coming from, so they understand that I'm not trying to be
But-
malice about it, but I can be a little bit caustic, and I'm trying to change that. But I think, and I addressed this directly to Bund ahead about the program. I think how they're trying to market the game is both good and bad. I think them throwing sponsored
okay.
streams and stuff, I don't think really contributes to developing a
But-
core group. And I think that pushes out people like you, Lucian, and other people who are great community streamers and even part of the community, competitive community, but don't
yeah.
have the significant number. But then again, you look at the numbers of Dauntless. At most, it averages about 500 viewers a day.
Yeah.
And unless there's like a paid person streaming
front
it,
page
or
or something.
or a front pager, or there's a somebody who already has an established community that comes over and streams Dauntless here and there. Like I'm good friends with Smashly. She has her established. If she comes over and streams Dauntless, she streams any game, she's going to have 200, 300 viewers. And I think it's unfair to make a partner program so exclusive that it doesn't let new blood in it unless you're lucky enough to either get recognized by a partner or recognized by somebody bigger and grow. Like, I think I hate to use Lion as an example, but Lion's a great example. I mean, when the partner program started, he didn't really make the cutoff. He's a great guy, great streamer. He's really come into his own. He's developed, he now averages anywhere between 30 to 50 viewers, and he's growing. He's growing more and more each time he does it, and he has a great personality. But there's very little room for people to grow like that unless somehow you get recognized or establish yourself. And even if you do that right now as a Twitch streamer, Dauntless is really not looking for Twitch streamers. They're looking for YouTubers.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I get that.
I mean, if you guys want me to like just kind of like, I can totally clear up a lot of this.
Well, I want to know.
Yeah, no, I
Revy.
mean, honestly,
I
like,
want to
what
know.
seems
Lucian,
from
what do you want to
Twitch
know?
partner. No,
What do you want to know, Lucian? Let him speak.
Do you think someone like me deserves to be a partner with the game?
no,
Let
get
me-
out.
let me-
No.
Just kidding.
That's not for me to decide. That like that
Yeah, I
that's
know
like a
it's
question
not,
I can't
know
answer.
it's not for you to decide.
Well,
but-
someone in chat said
Do-
Lucian
do-
is a partner for me. So
The
Ugh.
the thing with
Okay, do you, okay,
for,
let
with
me
your
change
just
the way.
let me say
oh my
one thing.
fucking god.
So the reason why the partner program feels so unresponsive is because of the community team. Many of them left, and it was just Bunhead as the community manager. She was wearing several hats. She had a lot of projects, and so the partner program, I would say still is on the back seat, like on the back burner. So whether you've been streaming the game for just now or several months ago, it was still you weren't gonna get any sort of response, right? Like it's just Bunhead spread way too thin.
Well, it's been over a year though. But yeah,
Well,
I
so
guess.
here's my thing with that, Rev, and I have respect for her, and I do see that the community team is thin, but it's hard to make that argument and to give that grace when they're giving paid sponsorships and paid ads and
That's advertising,
more or less
though.
handing. But that's advertising, yes, but they also have referral codes, and they have bits and pieces of partnership as part of that, which is, in my opinion, unacceptable. That's not differentiating a partner program from marketing. Marketing is one thing, and I'm totally fine with how they're doing it as a marketing thing, but they shouldn't be having referral codes unless they're going to actually be a partner. They shouldn't get a flare unless they're going to actually be a partner. And they're, in my opinion, a witch hunt for YouTubers that can stay dedicated to Dauntless content. I think what Bunhead said to me originally about developing the current partner, I think, okay, that you have some validity to that. Developing Odo, developing you, developing other partners to expand into YouTube. Even I'm trying to expand into it. However, I don't think at the viewership that Dauntless has, other than what marketing is bringing into it, that the partner requirements should be so high, or that they need to reevaluate the partner program to be more streamlined, kind of like Warframe, where, hey, you meet this threshold as long as we like you or your content adds something to the community, then you can be part of the partner program, at least in a lower tier. At least then we're getting something back for the effort that we've put into broadcasting the game and giving it,
I mean, to touch on that, yeah. Can
I'm
I quickly say?
the only
Go
thing
for
I
it.
can really think
Yeah.
of is I guess I could offer my experience, right? It is I joined the partner program at a younger time, where it felt empty, right? And I would say now that it is more populated, I think that there is room for more partners right now. In that if there was like a for a lack of better word, like a purge. If there was like a purge of current partners that don't always advertise the game, I think that there is room for more partners. But there's only so many people that one person can manage. Is what I was kind of trying to get at with the whole bunhead thing. And so do I think that you have um, the dedication and the I guess like the rights to having a good shot at partner? Yes, I do. I don't think that on any planet or any sort of in any like partner program, I don't think that just the amount of time served is something where you should. I feel like the obligation to get something. That's just not me.
Well, yes.
I feel it should
putting
be
in
a
lot of
matter of
effort.
adding.
I think it
Yeah,
should be
adding to the
considered.
community.
I can tell you for sure that the fact that you have been streaming the game is going to be heavily considered in your favor. But I don't think that necessarily means that any one person should get partner. It doesn't need to be you. Like I think you have a better chance of getting partnered than a majority of the people streaming on Twitch. Like that's just fact.
Yeah.
You have a
that's just
much
fact
better
to me.
chance than me.
Like,
And
I
and
mean,
then even
you
better
told
chance than
you
me.
told me that like effort like will I don't know when last you came to my
Your
stream,
effort
you
will
told
get
me
noticed. I specific
yeah.
no, your effort has not gone unnoticed. Like that's the only thing I can tell you. And it people know, people in the partner program know who you are. People within the community know who you are. It's just I don't know how to say. It's just like
I'd say it's just a matter
the
of time.
Yeah.
yeah. I
Work
think it's
work
just
towards
more
your
of
goal
like
and you'll achieve it.
yeah.
I mean,
If you feel
Okay.
like you're not being heard or
It
know,
that
does
it's
really
taken too long. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
it
I
does
just
feel that way.
yeah. I mean, it's just it's a shitty situation, but I mean, I hope it doesn't like just discourage you entirely. I mean, what would my question is like, it sucks to wait. Like I'm in a similar situation with like waiting for Twitch partner, right? Like I had the numbers and then they slipped away, and then I had the numbers and then they slipped away, right? Like that's something that I know that feeling, and it sucks. And I think as long as you keep voicing like, hey, Bunhead, I really still believe in this community. I believe in this game. I'm really still pushing for partner. Like if you just keep, solidifying the fact that I believe I should be partner, and and I want to be partner, and I believe in this community, then I don't see why you wouldn't get partnered. And but on that flip side, if Bunhead says, well, I'm not really looking for Twitch partners, we have a shit ton of them, what are you going to do? Like, what's
But
your
like
action?
80% of them are not really playing the game.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to get at, Rev, is like
No, and I am receptive to that. And the reason for that is because I think that it's important to have both. It's important to have like a core community. And it's like you said, like you there are so many people that where offering sponsored content or sponsored streams is actually more effective than having people like us. Having Shroud, like there's no way anyone in this in this Discord can tell me that having Shroud was a bad choice. Having Shroud play
Especially since it
Dauntless
went
was a
well
bad
for
choice.
him.
well, so okay, so that so
I guess
with the
not.
marketing with the marketing stance that Jordan's taking right now.
Yeah.
My thing is like having Shroud, and I've seen like me, I've tested multiple games. I've been part of multiple competitive communities. I've seen the marketing across the board. My issue with getting somebody like Shroud brings in 20,000 viewers. Got it. It's great. It gets visibility to Dauntless. It's fine. Of that 20,000 viewers, maybe let's be overly positive. Let's say 10% of that viewership actually decides, hey, I'm going to download this game and play, or try and play with Shroud or whatnot.
Yeah.
You get the inflated numbers that Dauntless, and I'm sorry, Phoenix Labs, I'm sorry, Jesse, I'm calling you out on this. 15 million players. How many concurrent players is that really? How many concurrent players?
Concurrent players is
Not
totally
even 1
important.
million.
But what's even more important is
That's
that
for sure.
people know that Dauntless exists because it's 5th in Twitch.
Right.
Wait, really?
That's the big reason why people hire sponsored stream, or they sponsor streamers to bump up their player base on Twitch. And that
Making
helps
people aware
us.
of it,
Like
yeah.
that helps all of us. No matter if you are a Dauntless streamer, Shroud playing Dauntless helped you. And it might not be the numbers that you guys are like really wanting or expecting, but I mean, yeah, I mean, everybody here is just, you know, I bet they roll their eyes when they see, oh, 15 million, you know, big air quotes, right? Like that, like it's to get more people in the door. Like I don't know, it's like
Yeah, if you get
it's
more
all
people to
marketing.
acknowledge it exists, then that means that
Yeah.
people will start to, you know, open up to the idea of playing it more over time, stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
like
the big thing for sponsored streams is that the platform gets, you know, the game gets more exposure on the platform.
Well,
And
and here's my issue with that is I think that's all good and great, but then you can't turn around and make a partner program with these exploded numbers of viewership and requirements when the general viewership of the game is not that.
right.
I
You
would
can't you
I
can't
don't know what
request
the
that
partner
people
program
have
requirements are at this current moment.
for the last time I looked at them, you had to have at least 50 consistent
Concurrent?
viewers,
Yeah.
concurrent viewers, and you had to have at least 1,000 followers. For anyone new to streaming or, you know, affiliate level,
Yeah.
that's basically partnership at Twitch. Getting a partnership with a game, especially a game that doesn't average top 20 on Twitch, and having it
Right.
be more difficult than getting Twitch partner, I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're encouraged to play other games to inflate your numbers.
The current
Yeah, and
requirements.
I called.
Right.
I said
to
that
me, to me,
Vaughn.
that says like you need to be someone who's established already to be a Twitch partner because they're probably not looking for them. Like that. That's my first assumption out the gate, not knowing what they were. Is just like, okay, yeah, if you're streaming to 100 people, you might get 40 people in your Dauntless stream. Like you need to have probably greater than 120 average to get a Dauntless partner on for Twitch right now.
Well, and here's my
that's
thing:
beyond
is like,
me. That's
you can
beyond
go
me,
over
right?
you can go over to Warframe, which has way more concurrent players, way more viewer base, and you can get partner a lot easier than Dauntless, which to me,
to my knowledge,
creates
Warframe is much more exclusive, where you need to be playing Warframe and creating Warframe content exclusively.
they're more exclusive now, but I'm talking about around the same time of period that Dauntless is right now compared to where they were with their partner program. And even if you just discount the last 2 years of Warframe, it was easier to get Warframe partnership than it is.
I've literally played like 40 minutes of Warframe, so like
I played 7 years of it.
Yeah, I'm just taking your word for it.
Yeah, from the start of the game, pre-alpha, to all the way up to when they took raids out, and that's when I stopped playing the game. But I know Smashly from Warframe. I was a speedrunner in Warframe, and my issue, and I gave the numbers. I posted it on the forums, and you know, Bunhead's explanation to me was that they wanted to purge, focus on their current partners,
which they have done. Like they've removed several,
and that's great. And I don't
Then
see
why
an
keep
issue
it
with
open
that.
if
But
they're-
well, no, they closed it.
Is it open or is it applications?
And
Is it
now it's
open or
only
is it applications?
yeah, it's applications only for YouTube right now. That's what it says on the website. Is it's only YouTube. And I think some
How
for a
long
lot
has
of
it been
Twitch,
like that though? Like
almost
how long
a
has
year now.
Yeah.
So
Think-
YouTube
Pretty
only
long
for almost
time.
a year.
Think we should wrap up?
We're getting near it.
Yeah, that's fine.
All
mean,
I'm saying is, I think the evaluation that Bunhead has placed on the partner program eliminates the chance for a lot of up and coming streamers and content creators to join that and add to partner content creation community. And I think
True.
it really disheartens new content creators to seek out, like, to have Dauntless partnership be a goal, because it's not that it's just so far away, it's that, like you said, it's unresponsive. Like,
Yeah,
there's
no,
no
I mean it is.
there's no
It's
path
but
to
it's
partner for Dauntless.
yeah, no, exactly. But
It's hit numbers and
to
then
me,
hopefully get it.
if I see that Twitch partnership is, you know, greater than what my current viewership is, my average viewership is now, and I see that they're only accepting YouTube partners, I am sitting there streaming Dauntless and I'm thinking to myself, I want to get partnered with this game. How do I do it? On Twitch, right? And it's just like, well, Dauntless doesn't have the numbers. Like, what do I do? To me, it just kind of defaults to they're probably not accepting Twitch partners. But to touch on your, like, it's not very friendly. Whether you're partner or not doesn't define your content. Like, you can get subscribers on YouTube without being a partner. Your effort after the fact, like, whether or not you are a partner, you are still gaining the credibility and the knowledge and just all the benefits of having subscribers on YouTube, right? Like, all of that, like in Lucian's case, like, all of his effort isn't in vain. It's just from Phoenix Labs, it's specifically not responsive. Right? Like, you're still gaining the subscribers, you're still gaining the follows, you're still getting that traction every time someone like Shroud is streaming and someone likes the game and finds your content. Like, they're adding to your discoverability. Whether you're partnered or not, they're investing in the community. I mean, I don't see how that's just kind of shrugged off. Like,
My thing is the discouragement of evaluating the partnership at such a high level that, and this is what I post originally, was that on the average day, if you come into Dauntless and there's a partner
yeah, I
streaming,
read that.
there's a lot less chance that they're going to come by your channel. Even if you establish yourself, like me, I've luckily risen close to almost 20, 10 to 20 average viewers now. And my content is obviously not as community friendly as like Lucian's, but it's discouraging when the evaluation is so much higher than the numbers that are present.
I totally
YouTube
understand
is
that.
a different world. YouTube's a different
Yeah.
world. Like, you can be a nobody and you can all of a sudden skyrocket just because you put out that clickbaiting video or you made a really good content that now everybody's referring back to.
Yeah.
But
So
Twitch is not like that. Twitch is like,
absolutely.
either you could stream with somebody like Shroud.
Are you
It does
familiar
not
with
guarantee that people are going to come by.
I'm gonna plug someone who helped me when I was starting. Harris Heller. Have you heard of this channel? Alpha
What?
Gaming.
No.
Alpha
Yeah,
Gaming is a
I know
YouTube
Alpha
channel.
Game.
Yeah. So great channel for any aspiring streamer or content creator. Highly recommend Alpha Gaming.
Hashtag plug.
The discoverability on Twitch is scuffed, like, no questions. It's hard, and you need to put yourself out there as a content creator and be open to the fact that Twitch is not like you. It's not enough. You could be the funniest motherfucker on the block. You could be the best gamer on the block. It doesn't matter who you are if you started this late in the game. Like, you could. I've seen pro signed players playing Apex Legends to 10 people. I've seen, Dignitas players on Apex playing, very small numbers, and they have money behind them, right? It's like, how do you win on Twitch? you need to go to other platforms. You need to as I when I first started, I knew I needed to cast a wide net. And to me, that's Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter, right? Like my web could be even larger though. That's the thing is, and I think that expands beyond like being a partner helps me financially, but all of that was achieved through my work ethic. And I'm not saying that anyone here doesn't have the work ethic to do that. It's just like I got lucky, right? Like I knew from the get-go I needed to cast a wide net, and I expressed my interest in the Dauntless Partner Program at the right time.
Yeah. Someone calling Aoden rude in chat.
Hey, Lucian, out of curiosity, what just like generally speaking,
I'm an acquired taste.
what do you
I think
hope?
Aoden has been perfectly civil in this whole
See,
I read some of his tweets and I'm just like that's like vitriolic. Like oh, like I'll be dead ass. Like I read some of his tweets and I'm just like that's just something that's just not true and just
that's
from
because
a very like.
The worst part about it is Aoden, even though he might seem rude, once you understand his point and whatever he's like talking about, you kind of get what he's talking about. Like it's not about.
I think everybody feels the same. Like a lot of the feelings that Aoden has in the community, I think a lot of people have even within Phoenix Labs.
Yeah, I feel like even though like there's a lot of people that bitch on Aoden, but there's also a lot of people that agree with him, but they just don't voice their concern the same way Aoden does.
I do feel like at some time I have to argue for the veteran community because some of the veterans just decide that it's not worth their time or effort to go and voice it. And I mean, luckily there's more people being like that. And Revy, you know, I acknowledge you because even though you've gone on this content creation path and stuff like that, you still argue things for the veteran community. You still argue things for the challenge of things, and I can always appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I said this at the beginning is like I've always wanted to like bridge the two, and it's like once you start signing NDAs, it's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, I'm a person of the people, right? Like I cherish the. Yeah. It's hard to. It's like, well, then why don't you tell us anything? It's because I legally can't, right? It's just like, if it were up to me, I would definitely.
Do I value my ethics or do I value
I try to fight for you guys the best I can.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard.
Well, I think we should wrap it up on that note. It's the
Well, I had a question for Lucian.
Oh God, go for it.
I did, and then I got cut off.
Come on, go.
It should hopefully be quick. Out of curiosity, Lucian, what do you hope to get out of the partnership program if you were to get into it?
What do I hope to get out of it? Let me think.
Millions.
Well, I mean, like it's not so much what I want to get out of it. It's more like, you know, I just really love the game. Like I want to. I just want to be like
recognized,
have like a little bit of recognition,
like a little trophy,
a little bit of recognition, given so that I can continue to do what I do,
as kind of like legitimacy,
recognized. What do you call it?
As a community,
a recognized person of the community.
Yeah,
that's what I want out of it. You know.
Before someone starts.
I think you're already there, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah.
It's more official. I understand that, but I think that if that's what you're after, you're definitely achieving it in this moment.
To be honest,
right?
Lucy, you've already achieved this, Lucy. There's no reason for you to get a title of it.
I mean, yeah. Everyone that's here, is known in the community.
Well,
for the most part.
Not me, maybe, but let's not talk about it. Let's not go into
in different parts.
I am more seen around. If you go on the wiki, you probably know me, but that's another part. Well, I think we should wrap it up here because, as we said 16 minutes ago, someone needs to go get food.
Yeah.
Someone.
Yeah, I would love to eat.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we should.
I enjoyed it though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we actually covered a lot. Even though it might not have been all patch related.
Podcast.
Yeah. So thank you for everyone who came.
Although,
Thanks for having me, Blocks.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome to
I would
come
highly
anytime.
suggest breaking it up.
yeah.
So
Yeah, well,
One more thing.
Yeah.
Let me recommend. Try, let's try not to cut
Kuromi
people
Kid.
off so much. Let's try
Yeah,
not to
I
cut
think-
people off so much next time.
I think moderation would be like a little bit more moderation, and having
Sorry.
maybe questions like designated for specific people.
Yeah,
I naturally
just
just
kinda
want to
going
speak
around.
over you, Lucian. I
Okay.
don't know what
Yeah.
it is.
I'll take that
could-
to heart and
yeah,
I'll work
sorry.
on that next time.
I think
Yeah.
I think we could all do it as well as like if we're asking like kind of a statement question to
Yeah.
point it at somebody, let them answer, and then let follow up happen after.
Okay. I love Kuropi Kid's response to me not being known. To me, Mr. Blocks is the unseen language guy. I can only agree.
Unseen in multiple sense, like of the word.
I still have the unseen mask on my guy. Okay, but enough. Let's end. Okay. So
All right, Joel.
yeah, let's just yeah.